Yeah, so we're talking here. I think it's quite good because it started raining, but it's also good in the sense that we're away from the crowd, so we can have a real sensible discussion that isn't going to be driven by emotions.
Or driven by the rain, because it's
Yeah, and the thing is, let me just say something.
Content over everything.
People are rightfully so today to be emotional, and that's why I've refrained from saying some stuff that might seem to be deemed to be disrespectful to them. So I don't want to kind of insult people today, because normally I'm walking around saying certain things, and I'm trying to not to do that today, just out of respect. But yeah, I'll be back next week the same, but I'll try and do that today. So we're going to be talking about the New Zealand terror attack, and it is a terrorist attack. Anybody that starts saying, oh, it might be, no, I'm not sure, you are going to be somebody that I'm going to disassociate from, because if you're not calling it for what it is, that is an out and out terrorist attack, and this individual is just the opposite side of the coin to an ISIS terrorist. They're the same people with just different ideologies. Then I will start to move my kind of distance from these people. So we want to talk about something specific though. I mean, what do you want to say anything about the terrorist attack, and condolences to all the victims as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a terrorist attack. I don't need to add anything what you've already said. I agree completely. I've read the manifesto, all of it.
Yeah, I need to read it.
Yeah.
Can we go? Can we talk about the manifesto? Because I haven't read it.
Well, put it this way: there's a guy who heads up Generation Identity in the UK, Ben Jones, who sent me a message saying that I'm coming very, very close. He's coming very close to suing me because I sent a tweet around, and I stand by the tweet that said, having read the manifesto, all the ideas in that manifesto are exactly the same concepts and ideas that Generation Identity talk about the Great Replacement. The manifesto itself is entitled The Great Replacement. This refers to this idea that's quite popular in far-right circles and the alt-right, that the population, white Western population, has been replaced by Muslims, basically, or other non-white people.
The 14 words, basically.
The 40 words is similar, and so this guy who did the attack in Christchurch, entitled The Great Replacement, he talked about fertility rates, all the themes that you see in Generation Identity, and I pointed this out, and I'm not saying that Ben Jones is going to kill anyone, but I said the ideology is the same, and I still maintain that, and if he wants to sue me, bring it on, because I'm very happy for his ideology to be appearing in court, and we can compare it with this manifesto. So the point is this, that this is not,
the head of the Generation Identity is Martin Selner, who was the guy that was supposed to come last. So he was supposed to come last year with Tommy Robinson.
That's right, he was banned. And I think it was wrong that he was banned because we have a tradition of free speech. Karl Marx came here in the 19th century because as a refugee almost, and he went to the British Library. So in England we have a tradition of tolerance where people who are dissenters, political dissenters, can come here, and that's great. So I think he should be allowed here.
Would you agree with me? I mean, I've got a stance that I think Andrew Chowdhury should be allowed to speak here, and we should be able to challenge him.
No, I think Andrew Chowdhury, who should be locked up forever.
If he's free, because the thing is, I'm a true kind of believer in that. Speaking your mind and then being confronting these people and debunking their ideas is better than letting them go into an echo chamber where they can propagate and kind of brainwash.
Normally, that's good. In a civilized society, we should have freedom of speech, but there's no such thing as absolute freedom of speech. Every society has limits on freedom of speech. You can't go into a crowded cinema and shout "fire, fire" when there's no fire. You'll be arrested, and rightly so. Andrew Chowdhury publicly supported, and was convicted in a court for supporting Islamic State. Islamic State have publicly called for, and I've read it, the killing of men, women and children on the streets of London. And they have done so in London Bridge. I don't think a man like that should be allowed on the streets to propagate that and call for killing of Muslims and Sikhs and English. That should not be allowed. I agree.
It should be
not
locked up.
allowed. It's a criminal offence. So there's no free speech for him any more than there's free speech for a man to go in a crowded cinema and shout "fire, fire" when there's no fire. Or if I was to call for the killing of the Queen, there's a criminal offence. I can't do that publicly, and he shouldn't be allowed to do it. So it's a no-brainer for me. Some ideas are so evil that they should not be given airtime because they will have real-world effects and kill people. And his ideas.
So what you're saying? Are you saying that you believe he's calling for an incitement to violence?
Yes.
That is my line that I do draw.
He is.
All right.
But by giving credence and plausibility and support in Behaviour, this allegiance Islamic State, he is giving support to an organisation that's killing, calling for the deaths of people, and has killed people on the streets of London. And that in English law is a criminal offence. And Muslims, we should obey the law, unless it asks us to do something, obviously we can't agree.
Okay, so there's a big group coming over now. So So basically, what what's
happening?
All right, so we could only last so long before people come. So basically, what I wanted to talk about, we had the conversation privately, was some of the kind of rhetoric of the far right. Now, I'm going to say something. I don't classify myself as on the right or the far right. Because the thing is that, shut up, you some more carrying prick. I'm trying to be polite today, yeah, but don't start bullshitting me. I'm going to go freaking savage on you, little turd. So basically, yeah, when it comes to this situation, yeah, when it comes to this situation about no-go zone areas, I think that's bullshit. When it comes to this situation about Muslims are purposely trying to take it over, I think that's bullshit. When it comes to the situation that, you know, all Muslims support terrorism, bullshit. On both sides, we have the situation of polarization, where you have, because you have to understand, I meet these, the reason why people say to me, oh Raj, why do you talk to these individuals? I speak to them as human beings. So when I meet some, you're not a human being, you're freaking just an Indian, man, just move away from me. So basically, when it comes to the situation about talking to people, you start to humanize them, and some of these people that I've spoken to that you might classify as far right are concerned for their way of life. I'm not saying it's right. They're concerned for the way of life, and they're kind of latching onto some of these far right ideologies
let me get specific.
as a solution, which is not the right solution. The right solution for me personally is that I want to propagate the message that I don't care if you're Muslim, but be a British citizen as well. So I'm a British Punjabi Sikh. Someone can be a British Pakistani Muslim, and everyone can be a British Somalian Muslim. And if we have the unity of being British within that component, you're going to find it harder to hurt your fellow citizen. Would you not agree?
I agree with that, but I think my problem, I don't want to make this personal attack on you.
You know, you can, yeah. Let's make it personal, because I think it's a good way.
Because I don't want to make it personal.
No, I don't mind. I want you to be honest, and you can have a frank talk.
What I want to highlight here is Tommy Robinson. And now, Tommy Robinson, as many of us have seen on social media repeatedly, is where Tommy Robinson goes to a part of London and he just looks at the neighbourhood and says, yeah, all these people are full of Muslims and they all want to kill you. Yeah,
and I condemn that.
And he also talks about no-go zones in Britain, in London, in areas. Now, this kind of rhetoric, not only incendiary, is not only false, but actually it creates a climate of fear, a climate of hatred, that is the context where people like the Christchurch killer, they draw this hate, this poison from that. They go out and they kill people. So I'm not saying that Tommy Robinson is actually inciting terrorism, but he is indirectly culpable because he's creating this climate of fear by demonizing Muslims as a whole group. I mean, there are 1.8 billion Muslims on earth. You know, men, women, and children, old people, babies. I mean, it's a huge community. So when you, with respect, Raj, publicly, and I've seen the footage. It was even yesterday went up again. I saw it on YouTube. You publicly there with Tommy, and he's making jokes about Raj Singh, Tommy Robin Singh. Sorry, calling your name. And you're not just disassociating yourself with him.
Shut your mouth.
Cussing the turban.
I swear to God, you're going to piss me off today, man. Move from me. I'm telling you.
So,
be a bunda, be a man for once and start confronting everyone instead of just me, you little turd. Go on.
Anyway.
No, mate, look, I'm trying to be civil, and this little prick's in the background talking shit all the time.
We're trying to have a conversation. Because if he was being horrible.
We're trying to have a conversation. I'm trying to be civil today, and you're talking shit. Can we talk? Unless you want to say something sensible and not start talking about some more all day, we can talk.
Yeah, but Raj, but do you know you're...
Let's just go. You can talk about this later. And let me just say something. I don't agree with that kind of language, but he has been heckling me for like a year. He's a professional heckler and he's a coward.
Can you give us 10 minutes to have a conversation and then you can heckle him afterwards, right?
All right. Be a freaking, start being a bundana man, and start heckling other people. You're a pussy because all you do is heckle me. But when you got big men walking about, you don't ever heckle them, do you? You don't heckle Muhammad Taweed who called for. Well, yeah, he does. Oh, of course he does. He loves to be subjugated. He probably bends over for Muhammad Taweed. He probably the one that sends your dick pics. You're probably one that sends the dick pics to dick pic Taweed. Now let's go back. Sorry.
Let's just end this tirade.
Right.
So my challenge to you, Raj, with respect, is when you're publicly associated with someone who is stirring the pot, who's demonising, who's creating a climate of fear, out of which people are killing other people, like in Christchurch, where 50 or more people were slaughtered yesterday in a ruthless slaughter. You've got to have clear lines. That you can't just say, oh well, he's good on some things, not on others. You need to disassociate yourself publicly. Otherwise, you're implicated.
All right. So
in the public domain, you are involved in that kind of evil. Even though you have a much more nuanced, perhaps, and kind of yes and no kind of position with him. But unless you publicly disassociate yourself from a man who is saying evil things and stirring up hatred, which leads to attacks on Muslims, unless you do that, then you're still in there with him, and you're still going to be seen as part of the problem rather than part of the solution.
All right, so
that's the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, look, I appreciate your honesty, and what you're saying is not necessarily incorrect. And I would say why I kind of agree with some parts and disagree with some parts. Now, I'm going to say outright, yeah, like I said, when he said, oh, little packy minicab drivers, I was offended because as I was growing up, you know, when someone was being disrespectful to racists, they would call me a packy. So the word packy, it doesn't just not to Pakistanis, it's to Sikhs, it's to Hindus and stuff as well, yeah. So we all think that word is disrespectful. When it comes to the issue about all enemy combatants, I watched it a year and a half ago when the terrorist attack happened. And I didn't see it as a problem at the time. But I did re-watch it after the terrorist attack. And I have to say, you know, as much as, you know, I do still, to some degree, support Tommy Robinson, I've got to say and critique him and say, look, you've got to watch what you say in terms of that, because when you are saying that 150 houses and maybe, you know, a handful of people might have been associated with a terrorist group, but all of those houses have enemy combatants in, to somebody who hates a particular group already, that is going to kind of maybe give them the kind of like, I don't want to say it's going to provoke them, but you've got very savage people in the world who will listen to certain things, and we've got to understand that if you've got a big platform with millions of people listening to you, you now have a responsibility. You're not just in your room, or you're just not speaking to 50 people. And so if you're going to move forward, Tommy Robinson, you've got to, as a public figure, refrain from this language, because ultimately there is a very fine line between free speech and inciting violence. And so I think this one was one of those ones that might have went over slightly. And saying enemy combatants hasn't aged well. Now, a year and a half ago, when you're in a mood and you're angry, sometimes you might say things like, today people are upset, and so they might say stuff. So he was upset about the Manchester attacks, but it's aged badly over the 1.5 years.
But he has said, recently on television, when he was being interviewed, he says that he regrets nothing that he has been said. Not a single thing Tommy Robinson said on camera would he disagree with or renounce or in any way repudiate now. So we have to judge him by that. It's his own criteria, his own record. We can go back over the years. All that he said about Muslims is still his view now. And because, okay, he may have said it in a particular moment of passion, but it's still being circulated on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem.
He should take it down. He should say,
Yeah,
"Oh well,
I will say that,
I was very angry, upset that day. I no longer identify." He hasn't said that.
Yeah, all right.
What do you think about Tom Robinson's fans?
The thing is here that when it comes to Tommy Robinson, I once in a while meet him, and I'm a type of individual that I like to make my own decisions. So I am somebody that, you know, I don't get swayed by public opinion, as you know. Like, if people told me not to do something, I will decide for myself. Now, does that mean that like, in a year's time, I might look back at this video and go, Raj, why did you support Tommy Robinson? Do you understand?
Why?
So, and I might look back in a year's time and say, oh, I'm glad I'm still supporting Tommy Robinson. But you've got to give me that time for me to ask certain questions, because I can meet this individual in real life and ask him, would you, or even say to him, look, do you think here saying these are enemy combatants?
Let me he's on talk about no-go zones.
Oh, we talk about that as well.
So are these? You've been around in London.
Yeah.
Do these no-go zones exist? And if they don't exist, which of course they don't exist, why is he talking about no-go zones in London or anywhere in Britain?
So I'm going to give
What's behind this line?
I'm going to give my like I talked to you earlier, and I'm going to give you.
I want to hear what you got. I know what you said was interesting.
Yeah. So what the situation is, I'm going to say straight out. There is no-go zone areas here. There's no-go zone areas. That is a myth. What it is that you got no-go zone areas in people's minds. Yeah. So what happens is this. I'm going to give an example of me when I was younger. When I was 16, I lived in a mixed area, and I had to go to an area which was all white. And at that time in the 80s, there was not a single Asian. So when I went over there, as a Sikh guy, I stood out like a sore thumb. And so you had individuals staring at me. I felt like an alien in a different world, and to me it was like a no-go zone place. So it was an irrational fear. So I didn't want to go back.
That was in your head. It wasn't.
So this is what I'm saying.
Reality.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it was in my head, and the problem is with the world of people is that even those things like a phobia, like an irrational fear or a phobia, it may be in your head, but it's still something to that individual can be real. So, you know, someone could say, oh, that's truly scary. You're like, no, it's not scary. But if an individual truly finds it scary in their own brain, And even though it's irrational, it still fears. So let me just finish the narrative. So basically what I believe happens is this. You have an area like, let's give an example of like, maybe Southall, where there's a lot of Sikhs, and there's all these Indian shops, and everybody walking around in particular clothing and stuff like that. And an individual is walking through, maybe white, and has not been out of their comfort zone, walks in that area and feels uncomfortable because he's a minority within this big thing. And so for them in their own brain, they come to the rational fear that, okay, these people are not like me, and demonizing those people and saying, all right, I feel like I can't walk down this area. In reality, they could walk straight through and nothing would happen to them. They could probably shop and they'd be great with the shop owners. Nobody would say nothing to them unless they did something. So this is an irrational fear in their head, and propagating those areas is a bad narrative.
Right. So if I could say, if someone, a prominent public figure, Tommy Robinson, says there are no-go areas in Britain, and people will listen to him all over the world. Tommy Robinson has millions of followers in the United States, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Christchurch, wherever, and they think that Muslims are setting up, these Sharia zones, and white people who've never been to these areas think that they're going to call them. How are people going to react? I think they'll react by getting angry. They're going to be outraged that Muslims are colonising our towns and cities, and they're no-go areas, and there's probably Sharia. Now, all of this is complete and utter, if I'm using the term, bollocks. There's absolutely no reality to it at all. So it's not like when you were 16 or 15, walking through innocently as a kid into a white area, and you in your head.
In my head, it wasn't. I've been back there and fine.
But Tommy Robinson's not a kid. He's an adult. He's in his 30s or whatever old he is, and he is propagating lies which have been refuted, not just by you, in the public domain by many people. So it's not the same as you as a kid, innocently and mistakenly mistaking reality. He's a mature adult who had publicly been told this is all rubbish, and it's not true. There's no area of Britain that he can't walk, in theory.
Let me say something. Tommy Robinson can't walk down an area like that because
he can't walk down anywhere.
So for him, it is a no-go zone. No doubt.
But that's because of his notoriety.
That's
not because of any no-go areas.
Yeah, so I agree that if a white person was to walk down an area that was like South or something, nothing's going to happen to them.
So
the only thing that will happen to them is their own breed.
So Raj, if we have someone here who's inciting hatred, clearly by lying, just like the Nazis did about the Jews in the 1930s, the Jews are taking over, the Jews have their enclaves, they're secretly controlling things, they're taking over. The same kind of dynamics, social dynamics. We need to publicly disassociate ourselves if we've been close allies before, which you are and have been. You can't just say, I privately disagree, and maybe one day I'll get around to
I'm not saying
nothing.
What I'm saying is this year, I truly believe that individuals like Tommy Robinson are still going to be there, and individuals that are going to propagate these things are still going to be there. And the best way to kind of educate people is to talk to people. And I'm not going to stop talking to certain people. I have certain individuals that I know are good people, but maybe slightly misinformed or misunderstand what's going on, or maybe purposely don't want to listen. And if I come to the conclusion that they are purposely misinforming people because of their own kind of agenda, and they know what they're saying is wrong, and I've told them it's not, then I will start disassociating myself. But I will not start disassociating myself because other people tell me that this person's bad and that person's good. I've got to make my own decision when it comes to that.
See, Tommy Robinson is a fanatic. He's not like a neighbour who perhaps you can have a reasonable conversation with. Hey, dude, do you know these views you've got are a bit wrong? He's a public fanatic. He's demonising Muslims. Indirectly, he is responsible for any attacks on Muslims because he creates a climate of fear and hostility and enmity towards a vulnerable group of people in our society. So, because he's a fanatic, he won't listen to reason. If he'd listened to reason, he wouldn't be where he is today. He would listen to other people. So in spite of being told the truth, he is still propagating his lies because he is a fanatic. He's an extremist. He's a far-right extremist.
I don't want to be rude, but the thing is they're talking so much behind, it's distracting me. I don't know if there's any way that we can...
Robson's fans for celebrating
I condemn you for being a turd.
Muslims.
That's what I condemn. Be a man. Be a bunda for once. When you be a bunda for once and be a man, maybe I might start
Now follows a humorous interlude for
being
serious
a
conversation will resume in a few minutes.
Be a bunda, grow some tatte. You know what tatte are?
Focus, Raj.
You're making me look here. I'm trying to be civil today, and have a sensible conversation. But when you have somebody like this, anybody that celebrates those deaths, you are evil, savage people. Yeah. You people need to be shot to the moon like the rest of those freaking ISIS supporters. All of you are the same people. You need to go over there and start, you know, I don't know, duke it out and kill each other up there. Because yes, I do condemn people. If I start hearing
Tommy
people
Robinson fans.
justifying this attack or saying maybe it's retaliation for this, I'm going to disassociate myself, because nobody, that guy that done the attack, I truly believe this, that he's a white supremacist who, although his main target is Muslims, if I was walking down the road, do you think he wouldn't have killed me?
Yeah.
He would have still shot me as well. He would have shot him, and he definitely would have shot him.
Definitely.
So what it is. So when it comes to the situation, the Sikhs also have experienced this in America, the Wisconsin shooting, and he had the same ideology as this.
Because they're
individual.
mistaken you for Muslims. That's why.
No.
Not because they
he was a
thought
white
they were Sikhs.
supremacist. His main thing was that, look, what I truly believe is that even if there was no terrorist attacks happening around the world, these type of individuals would still want to kill Muslims and minorities, because their ideology is just about eradicating people that are not like them. So they use this, Manchester as an excuse. I mean, disgracefully for that guy that done the terror attack, he had one of the young girl who got killed in a terror attack, name on a gun, which is totally disrespectful to that young girl that died in that terrorist attack. This guy doesn't care about anything apart from hurting people that are not like him. Yeah,
Hey,
so
that guy didn't have your name on the gun, did he?
no, he had the word samosa carrying prick somewhere. Maybe on his lulla, I don't know.
Oh, dear.
All right, so let's get back to this stuff. I do want to talk about one thing, because I've not read the manifesto of the guy, and I know, I'm not going to say I think, I've not even read it, but I know my ideology is no way in line with him. Now, I will say one thing though, when it comes to the Great White Replacement, this is not totally untrue, but it is something that's the white people's fault. It's not Muslims doing it. What's happening is that the white people in the West have lost their traditional values. So what they're doing is that they're murdering 150 million babies. Sorry, I believe abortion is murder.
No, I do
and
too.
150 million babies are being murdered. Muslims don't do abortions, yeah? So obviously they're gonna have more kids on the whole. Then you have a situation that the birth rate is now only like 1.5 for white people, but other communities like the Muslim community are having normal birth rates. So in reality, what's happening is that these far-right fascists are using something that is their own fault, so the West need to take responsibility for losing their traditional family, their traditional values, and their numbers are going to decrease. But that is not planned by Muslims. It's done by your own downfall for becoming too liberal.
No, I agree with you. The alt-right traditionally, they do blame Jews for that. They say behind the scenes, all of this, there's a Jewish conspiracy to basically, exterminate the white race, and so Muslims are basically a pawns in that. They don't tend to blame Muslims per se, but they do hate Muslims. And hate
Would
Islam,
you classify
right.
Richard Spencer as one of those? Because I can't.
As what?
Do you know who Richard Spencer is? Yeah, so would you classify him somebody that blames the Jews? Because I know there's certain individuals that it's a very complicated, because some people on the far
Richard
right.
Spencer, and this is going to personality now. He's an American guy. He used to be thought to be the guy who coined the term alt-right, and he was a senior figure. He's on record as saying he doesn't believe that there's an organised conspiracy to do this to Europe. He doesn't believe that. But the norm in the alt-right is there's a Jewish conspiracy.
All right.
So he's a bit different. He's a bit,
Yeah, so when you read the manifesto, what kind of points did you take from that manifesto that stood out to you as a kind of, let's specify, because it's such a big manifesto. Well, it's not really that, it's only 71
it's about
pages.
70 odd
But
pages.
Andres Breivik is basically, I know, one of his heroes.
It's very different from Andres Breivik.
Yeah, I know, Andrew Breivik, just so people know, he actually killed the politicians' children on an island, around 70 of them, because he felt like they were betraying their countries and were traitors. So those children were not Muslim, but they were seen as race traitors. But what did you take from that particular document that aligned with, say, some of the thought process of Tommy Robinson or maybe even me? That's quite a controversial.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily tie it with the idea of the Great Replacement is probably there in Tommy Robinson's mind, but this is the idea, as we said, that, and you're right, the fertility rates are in free fall in Britain and the West in general.
Start having babies, man.
So, but this is what the far right would say. Start having
You need to
babies.
have a baby.
Perhaps AID or whatever it's called, artificial insemination. You won't find me sleeping with anyone.
We might find a
Anyway,
man had a baby recently. So
no, he wasn't a baby. It was a
I know,
transgender woman. So he was complaining about that, but he also complaining about for him the historic, civilizational attack of Islam on the West forever in the last 1,000 years. He go on and on about that. Without any kind of historical context, understanding of the way the West colonized the entire Middle East and North Africa, as we know. But he also mentioned one British politician who actually came here once, I'm told, in the 1930s. Someone called Oswald Mosley.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Oswald Mosley was the leader of the British Union of Fascists in the 1930s. He was interned during the Second World War because obviously it was a threat to public order. But he was an outspoken, he called himself a fascist. And this guy in Christchurch saw him as an ideal politician. So he explicitly fascist, this guy. He wasn't just alt-right, he was fascist. There's a difference between fascism and the alt-right, which is a different subject. But for him, the big issue was the white race. The white race is becoming extinct. Muslims are the hostile enemy. We need to kill them, basically. But interestingly, he named a list of individuals he wanted people in Britain to pick up a gun and assassinate. He actually called for the targeted killing of the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for example. I mean, he actually lists a name of people he wants to see assassinated. So this is a highly dangerous individual.
There's this kind of. I actually think that do you think the mosques need to tighten their security? Because one of the things I found quite surprising is I have to admit I watched the video because I thought I need to see it. Yeah, because I need to see the savagery and how people. Because I mean, this individual. Was walking around like a robot, like it's sickening to see it that some individuals, people in the world are that evil. But one of the things I found quite surprising was the lack of kind of response to the situation of such severity. I mean, you could hear that. I mean, it wasn't like with a silencer. So even the mosques within the UK, I do agree. Like some people say, it needs to be. I think they do need to be tightened up in terms of security and have plans put in place.
Well, for example, in Regent's Park Mosque, the local
including
mosque
Gurdwara as well, though, Sikh temples as well, and Hindu temples.
There are security guards there who patrol. There's a security presence, a uniformed security presence. So it is there, and the police were outside there recently because of the recent attack. Yeah. But how you stop a lone gunman who's determined to shoot his way in, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, even with the Sikhs, I think we need to start thinking about security a bit more in terms of our temples, because obviously these individuals, although their main enemy would probably be Muslims, if they had a chance, they'll attack us as well.
One of the things he did say is that he's trying to incite a civil war.
Yeah, and this is the problem.
But by his actions, he wants to kind of rile people up, and there are lots of people like this around, so that they will, the state will then brutally suppress people, and then there'll be a reaction, and there'll be a civil war, and thus you get a race war.
I think this is the one thing that I'm.
People like Tommy Robinson are going to be on the wrong side of this so-called civil war if it happens. They're going to be there attacking Muslims. It's going to be like the 1930s all over again. We're going to have the fascists and the communists, whoever the opponents are. We're going to have that kind of conflict again.
Yeah, but
we need to avoid that.
But do you? Yeah, I mean, one of the things like this is why I'm saying that. If you have we can't take back multiculturalism. Whatever these people say, we're here, we're not going nowhere. We are British citizens. I don't give a shit if you won't accept me. I'm British, Punjabi, Sikh. You can't do nothing about that. And if a Muslim person is here, they're British as well, as much as you are. There was an individual that came the other week that served with the British Army as well. And so there are people that have not fought for their country, but served their country, and they're not from a particular faith that you like. So for me personally, I've come to the point that I believe that. We've got all these groups, disparate groups that we don't have nothing in common with. Like, I don't have much in common with a Somalian Muslim in terms of their culture and stuff like that. But if we have the commonality of being British as well, and he's a British Somalian Muslim and I'm a British Punjabi Sikh, we have that link through our kind of like, we want to, what's best for the UK. Now, I totally condemn colonialism. In fact, I'm doing my next artwork is about the Amritsar massacre in 1919, where 1,500 Sikhs were killed by the British unarmed. And so I totally condemn the colonial past. But that doesn't mean I want the UK to be destroyed from within because of past atrocities and stuff. We have to live here as a people. And one of the things I truly believe is that, although you may not like it the way I talk sometimes some of the things I say, which are so blunt, it gets the conversation starting, and then I can listen to what you're going to say. And if I feel that you've given enough evidence, I will adjust my views. A perfect example is when I said that I feel like all Salafis should be locked up and put in Guantanamo Bay a year and a half ago on camera. Then who came over? Shamsi came over
I'm not surprised.
with his crew and all that, and they spoke to me, and then we spoke for an hour off camera, and he said, look, this situation about Salafis is not as simplistic as the internet makes out. That as soon as you write Salafi, terrorist. And so I've adjusted my views. But if I didn't say that...
So have I. I've learned a lot about Salafis.
But if I didn't say that, I would still be holding that view, but not have said it to
You
people.
don't need to be so provocative. You can just go up and talk to people.
Yeah,
You
but the
don't
thing
need to
is-
make it a kind of outrageous remark
All right,
just
so the
to
thing- the-
incite a debate.
No,
You
it's
can actually
not-
go up and
no,
have a conversation
Hold
with
on, but the
someone.
thing is,
Shamsi's been here for years.
No,
You can
but
have a
what I'm
conversation
saying is
with
that is just my natural style. I'm not doing it on purpose. I just do it like
Okay.
that. So that's my
I
natural
prefer to say there are other
personality.
ways of doing things to get the same result without kind of saying
Trust
outrageous
me, I'm
things.
doing it the same way. No one's changing it. You're mad.
Well, you can change yourself.
Yeah, I can. What I've done is to try and refrain from language that is going to be inciting, kind of like. So I want conversations, and one of the things is, like I said about the niqab, I went around it the wrong way. I said, I want to ban the niqab. Straight away, everybody was on my back, and I understand now when I look back why they were upset. But at the time, I was like, why are you upset for? But now I understand that if I just said, look, let's talk about the niqab being a problem and maybe let's discuss it, I could have had a productive conversation about it, and then we could have had a civil discussion, and maybe you might have been able to change my mind. But unfortunately, it became a kind of, all right, you want to beat up on the niqabi sisters, you want to attack them, people are going to attack them because of what you're saying. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the fact that in order to have a productive conversation and debates and change your mind, language and how you say stuff is important.
And that's why I say your public association with someone who uses extremely offensive and incendiary language about Muslims, who has a huge public following, your public association and approval of him is not doing you any favours, to put it politely.
All right, so...
All right? You need to disassociate yourself with someone who is spreading such evil around the world through a massive audience. We cannot be neutral when it comes to people being killed on the streets of Christchurch. We can't say, we can't be neutral. We either condemn it or not. If we condemn it, then we also condemn the language it is used to stir up this hatred, which for Tommy Robinson is probably the single most prominent example of that in the UK. We can't be neutral. We've got to say no more. We disassociate ourselves. Does it mean you like Islam? Criticise Islam. I have no problem criticizing. That's fine. I'm not talking about criticising Islam being a problem. We're talking about the demonising of our entire community and lying about them, and thus inciting attacks on them, verbal or physical.
But
That's
can
what
I
we're
ask you a
talking
question? Look, in terms of me aligning with Tommy Robinson and not aligning with Tommy Robinson, that's going to be a personal journey for me. And it's not going to be something that I'm going to be swayed by public opinion until I make my own choices. One thing I kind of feel that people are not really taking into account is that Tommy Robinson is just a little piece of the puzzle who's kind of like the voice of a mass of people that we cannot ignore. When I go to a Tommy Robinson event, there's a lot of people there that truly believe some of this stuff in their own head. They truly believe it. And if we just start saying you're all Nazis, you're all that, you're all enemies. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I've heard this narrative, all right. You have it on both sides. So when I go to these Tommy Robinson events, and I'm going to say something, some of those events are ridiculous in the sense that you have an event about free Tommy Robinson. You don't need to bring Islam into it. So when you're saying Allah is a this and all that, it's unacceptable. It's just stupid. So you have these individuals that go there that have not met Muslims, not spoken to Muslims, and so they have this demonization. I truly believe, like, when these people come to the park, allow them to come to speak, and over a period of time, if they were true human beings, you will kind of separate the worst from the good, and the good people will start to
These
talk.
guys are welcome to come to speak to me at Speaker's Corner. If they want to have a conversation, I'll talk to them. If they want to shout abuse, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But your responsibility, we can't change them, but our responsibility is not to be public allied with the forces of evil, basically, seeking to demonise and hurt innocent people around the world. It is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It's not complicated
Let me say
anymore.
So the thing is, for other people, it's not complicated. For me, it's very complicated. So, like I said, for me, it's not just a simple, I'm going to disassociate from this person. Because the thing is, as much as I disagree with some of the stuff he has said in hindsight, after the attack, and I've watched it back, I can still see there are certain things that he is saying that are still resonating with the masses and with me to a certain degree, and those people will still be talking to him, and they will still be using him as a way to voice their let's just say they're kind of concerned. What we need to start doing is like not ignoring these people, but talking to them.
I'm inviting them to speak.
I'm not talking about you, but
let's talk to them. There are a lot of Muslims here who may have to talk. You see, the problem is there's a guy called Hitler. Now, he had lots of good things, good policies. He built the Autobahn, the first highways in the world. He actually banned vivisection. He was the first. He banned public smoking in Berlin. Yeah, so he had some good policies, and he had bad policies. So perhaps we shouldn't be too harsh on him. Perhaps we shouldn't take sides. Do you know what I mean? How silly that sounds?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
because just because someone has some good ideas doesn't mean they are fucking bastards at the same time who should be opposed.
Of course,
so in that sense, Tommy Robinson may have some good ideas. Who knows? But the fact that he does say and incite hatred against a vulnerable community is enough. We don't need to think, oh, the other good thing.
All right, so
that ultimately disqualifies him from.
All right, so the Tommy Robinson
is
one component that I think is something that
very prominent.
Very prominent. But we're going to go around in circles. Now there are certain individuals that associate with them that I do not agree with and totally disassociate with. Britain First being one of them. The reason why I'm calling out Britain First is that they do something that I truly believe is provocative and inciting violence. Because what they do is they go into mosques, and I'm telling you, people think I'm an Islamophobe, but if I saw these guys walking into these mosques here, I'll be the first one to grab them and chuck them out. Because this is a place of worship. I've seen videos of them haranguing old men, and they've gone around with armoured cars. That is a group that I truly believe is something that I need to.
It's interesting. On that note, when this terrorist went into the mosque in Christchurch with a gun, and the first word that the Muslim said to him was "Welcome, brother," and that was the first and last words that man spoke, because he was then killed. It's interesting that his reaction was, even to a white man with a gun who was about to kill him, it was "Welcome, brother." Words of positive words of his humanity, and he was slaughtered. And I think that's just a great deal. If we demonise people, we can kill them. If we demonise Jews, we can kill Jews. If we demonise Muslims, we can kill them. And people like Tommy Robinson are demonising. We've seen the videos. There's massive footage on YouTube where he demonises Muslims, whole communities. He basically paints them in the same brushes as dangerous and hostile to Britain. Complete bollocks. Complete bollocks.
All right, so like I said, look, we're going to go around in circles when it comes to Tom Robinson. What I want to quickly just talk about is his supporters, because the supporters here, although you may think here that a large proportion of them might be racist or stuff like that, when I've met them, I do not get that from these people. What I get from them is that they're kind of like confused, and they're kind of like worried about their kind of way of life being changed. And I'll give the example of this here. Like, if just for hypothetically, I went to the Punjab where my people are from, and you know, all of a sudden when I went there, there's 30% Chinese people, and the culture is starting to change. And what I loved about the Punjab in terms of language and these whole areas that are starting things to change, I would be a little bit concerned. And it's not because I hate the Chinese. It's because I like the way of life that my people have had.
That's fine, I don't have a problem with that.
So do you understand?
If you then start to demonise these people and say,
this is the thing.
And you know, because that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now, what you said, that sentiment, I don't have a problem with. It's a common
But this is what I'm
sentiment.
saying. That is what.
But that doesn't
white people
automatically
think.
translate into Tommy Robinson's kind of.
No, I'm talking about supporters. He supporters.
Yeah.
So let's go to the supporters, because the supporters are the people that make Tommy Robinson. Without his supporters, he's nothing.
But he is manipulating, inciting, and changing them to focus their anger against an immigrant community.
But I'm trying to make
for whom they're not at fault.
But what I'm trying to do is to make you understand the mindset that they're in. They do not, in my opinion, hate the other group. What they are is they hate the change. And unfortunately,
I think they do hate Muslims.
The reason,
I've been on the demos as an observer, and I've seen the way they speak about Muslims. They hate Muslims.
All right, so let me say something. I do believe, out of all the groups, they do dislike Islam. And the reason, now I'm not saying this is right. The reason I've got from the reason they like Islam is because Islam is something that is very, very forceful in its way of life. It's hard to compromise with Islam. So I'll give you an example. Like when you go to a Sikh area and there's a lot of Sikhs that suddenly come down, the area will still have some remnants of its Britishness in terms of stuff here. It's quite liberal. There's the women be walking around a certain way. The pubs are still open, but we Sikhs should not be drinking. I've not drank for 6 years. Stop drinking, Sikhs. So alcohol is bad as well. I agree with Islam on that. So basically, You think I'm not going to get the Sikh, bro?
I thought he was a Muslim.
Yeah, no, he's from Afghanistan, you know.
A Sikh from Afghanistan?
Yeah, so this is the thing. They used to, just to offset, but there used to be 100,000 Sikhs in Afghanistan. Now there's only 600.
Yeah, and that country's been occupied and brutally terrorised by Western armies for the last 20 years.
All right. So we can talk. But the thing is, when it comes to this situation, when you go to an area of a Hindu area, there's still a lot of remnants of what you call British culture. But when you go to, even I've seen it, when I've gone to a predominantly Muslim area, it is very Islamic. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is.
Yes, you are.
I'm not saying that.
Subtext of what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying from these supporters' view, when they go into these areas, it's so alien to them that I don't feel like an alien when I go to an area that is very Islamic, because
I want to distinguish two things here.
I'm not saying that I agree with that.
I want to distinguish between the issues to do with immigration into the United Kingdom and the effect it has on the indigenous communities and the tensions and so on. All that is what, that may be the case. Yeah. That is one thing, and that's a different subject as far as I'm concerned. I'm talking about Tommy Robinson and his like, who are inciting hatred against Muslims, in effect calling for us to attack them. Because obviously, if you portray them as such a danger and such a threat to us, you're calling for us to attack them.
No.
Oh,
So,
oh, come in, man. Come in. You might as well come in as well, man.
This immigration debate doesn't lead to us approving of the language of no-go zones, of the lies that he's propagating. So that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
The immigration is a valid debate, we can have that, it's a different subject. I'm talking about those who incite hatred, extremists, the far-right extremists, like Tommy Robinson and his crew, who are inciting hatred, and that does incite some people to kill people, like we've seen in Christchurch. That's what I'm talking about. These other issues are valid, they're real, they're genuine, but they're not the point we're talking about today. They don't lead to Christchurch. They just lead to all sorts of issues.
Like I'm saying to you, is that the core way here to kind of like if you want Tommy Robinson to go, you don't attack Tommy Robinson.
I want him to be arrested and thrown in jail because he's a hate preacher.
What I'm saying to you, that's
he shouldn't be walking around the streets.
Hold on. This is very simplistic because another Tommy Robinson will come. He will just be replaced. So what I'm saying to you, in order for Tommy Robinson, or somebody like him, to kind of go from the public platform, is to address the people that support him. What are their concerns? And some of their concerns may be irrational, like the no-go zone areas. Some of their concerns might be legitimate, that their way of life is changing in certain ways. But you need to speak to them. Once you can educate those people, this is why I say...
I'm happy to speak to them.
So what I'm saying...
But having concerns about your environment changing does not equal inciting hatred against a
No.
group.
I'm not saying that.
And that's what I'm saying. These are two separate issues.
But
be concerned, but don't let your concern translate
but
into
how do you
attacking people.
But how do you defeat that?
You go. It's very easy. Yeah. We live in a parliamentary democracy. You go to your MP. You used to have a parliament. You form parliament. You have discussions. You don't attack people physically.
No. So what I'm...
We live in a democracy.
One of the things
change
is,
the system. Get people elected.
Yeah. So one of the
That's
things
what
I've
you
been
do.
accused of is like, oh, you bring the far right down by certain individuals and all that kind of stuff.
You do. You're allied to a far right person.
Oh, look who's here.
No, but you do.
All right.
Are you going to deny it?
Hold on.
But to be fair, let's be factual.
Can I just finish my sentence, man?
But you did look at me, so I'm getting in.
This ain't the Irish Republic, you know. You haven't got it yet. You can't start taking control of me.
He's good at the comebacks. He's good at the comebacks.
He said I'll be a traitor. I'll be put to the wall. So here's a wall here. Where's the pea shooter?
You said you executed
So
traitors in
let me
India.
just say something. Down to India, you third world country. So basically, third world.
Let's talk
I've
about you
explained
bringing
before.
the far.
So basically, when it comes to this situation about these people coming down,
You're Indian.
Shut your mouth.
You're Indian.
So when it comes up Punjabi, you're an Indian. This is why India
You're
got
Indian,
conquered
Roddy boy,
by
big
one
brand,
freaking
big
man.
brand.
They met you, someone like you with a samosa in his hand and a pakora in his pocket.
We all can't
So
eat
basically,
baked beans.
Hold on. Yeah, I love baked beans. We got a baked bean crew. Let me just say something. So
I
when
like baked beans.
Yeah.
See, what's something in common? We like baked beans.
I eat them every
It's got to
day.
be Heinz baked
I've
beans.
eaten- Oh my god!
They can't be any crappy
You do
baked
know-
beans.
You do know who
It's
I
got to
am.
be Heinz baked beans.
You do know that I've eaten baked beans for 25 years every day.
You're a Bushishman, sir. You're a British citizen. You're
Yeah,
truly British. If you like baked beans.
That's what we need to have in a national...
Do you drink tea?
No, I don't.
you're not quite there then.
So the thing is that one thing I like when, like, you may not like these guys coming down, but I truly believe having these individuals coming down is a good way to weed out the good from the bad. Now, if people are truly genuine, when they speak to an individual and they're kind of challenged on their views and they're given information and they still don't change their view, then those are the people that are a problem and we can disassociate. So there are people
they have
that
been down here.
So
These far right guys have been down here. We have spoken to them,
Listen,
and it's like
everyone's
talking
saying
to a real brick wall. They don't
Oh,
understand.
yeah, big up the road girl.
That it's not about road girl.
Oh,
yeah?
well done for losing some weight as well, man.
Thank you, mate.
Banksy,
But
you need to, you fat
That
prick.
is besides the point here.
Banksy
place.
needs to lose weight.
Don't know why he's talking about losing weight for.
I'll tell you, Banksy.
On camera as well.
Well, that's
Anyway.
what I'm saying to you.
I've
But
lost weight
I
as
agree
well,
with your
2.5
point,
stone.
sir, when you're talking about Paul, yeah, about the white supremacists, that their rhetoric and their ideology is enough to cause people to get killed, right? We do have extremism on both sides, but recently what's been happening is on the right-wing side, the attacks have been they've been happening more, right? And especially here in the UK. Right, we're supposed to be in this liberated country, you know, we're supposed to be free, people have to be free to express their religion. Why is it now that Muslims are getting run over, Muslim mosques are being attacked because of people like Tommy Robinson? And do you support Tommy Robinson, by the way?
I still align with Tommy Robinson up to a point. I am questioning some. Hold on.
Well,
I'm going to say something again. No one's going to tell me what to do.
I'm not telling you what to do.
I'm asking you who you allied with.
So what I'm saying to you, as of now,
Stop supporting the far right.
I'll stop supporting the far right when you drop that samosa or eat it, you little prick.
Oh.
So basically, when it comes to the situation with Tommy Robinson, you have this situation that, look, I do feel uncomfortable now listening back to some videos that I've not watched for a while, like these are enemy combatants. I'm going to condemn that. I will say
what about when he referred to the Asian man as a P-word?
I said the other week that I found that offensive. So there are certain things that I know are problematic when it comes to Tommy Robinson. But I need to make my own decision. Hold on. I know, look, so what I'm saying to you is that most people will never meet him. I have the opportunity to meet him sometimes. So I will make my decision, I will make my decision when I speak to the individual and ask him a particular questions. And if I feel that he's been disingenuous or he's saying things that I feel are condoning violence,
But
then
I
yes.
think he's very clear. I think he's very clear in his
it's clear to
agenda.
you.
No, I think he's a racist bigot. It's
clear to
very
you.
clear.
It's clear to
He's
you.
Why
very
did Tommy
clear.
Robinson come to the park in the first place?
Because
clear,
to
it's
bring
black
up the
and white.
speak.
And who was Marty Selner?
Marty Selner is a racist Nazi.
Right. And what does he believe in?
He believes in the white
Great
replacement.
Yeah, and he read out his speech.
Yeah, and generational identity is something I don't agree with.
It's
But-
just what the
Generation
terrorists in
identity.
Christchurch, he believes exactly the
But-
same thing. If you read the manifesto,
but-
it's the same as what Generation Identity believes.
But I believe that Martin Selner should have been allowed to speak, so I supported his right to speak.
Yeah, free speech.
This is
And
nonsense, though. This is
no, it's not
nonsense.
nonsense. It's nonsense
It's
to you.
nonsense.
Just get yourself island, man,
speech
for
is
God's
nonsense.
sakes. Just go over there and start getting Ireland. I don't know what you're here for, man.
No, he's got very
Why
good
don't you go
points.
to Ireland and
He's got
try and
very
get in a
good points.
united
That will
Ireland?
appeal to your far right gears.
Yeah, just
That's
go
their
over there. I'll
rhetoric.
get a
You
cat
got
pole and
a
shoot you over with
rhetorical
Anjem Chowdhury.
he's
So
one of your
basically, you take him, man.
He's
You
one
can
of
go
your
over there.
assets.
So
He's one of
basically,
your
But ultimately,
What's for your
let's stick
So
to the point
basically,
here.
when it comes-
Tommy Robinson is a racist bigot who incites hatred, who incites violence against Muslims. That is very, very clear cut. Now, moving forward, how can we tackle this issue? Because this is not continue to, this can't
Yeah,
continue
this is
to
what we was
happen.
talking.
Because innocent people are getting caught in the
Right, so this is what we was
crossfire.
talking
Well
about.
done, well said.
This is what we was talking about. How do we look? Tommy.
How do we? You publicly
Hold on,
disassociate. That's
hold on,
how
no,
you
no, no,
begin.
you're not gonna make me
Because
do
you have a
anything.
big following.
Hold on,
It's
so-
they will learn
hold
that
on,
you
hold
have
on,
no
hold
longer
on, hold on,
tolerated
hold
this
on,
man.
hold
But
on.
you're not dissociating
on,
means
hold
you
on.
tolerate him.
Hold on.
That he's
Can I-
okay to
let me
you.
just say something
You
to
must
camera.
publicly
I don't
dissociate.
care if there's 50 million people telling me something to do. I will make my own decision.
Well, hurry
I'm
up
not-
about it.
So,
Hurry up.
No, nothing about hurry up. If it takes me 50 years, I might
Get on
die.
with it.
I
Get on
might die
with
and
it.
never disassociate myself.
All right,
So
hurry up.
basically, when it comes to the
The clock
solution,
is ticking
when it comes
before
to
the next terrorist
when it
attack.
comes to the
That's right.
solution, is that the main thing is we cannot get to a point which people are getting to, unfortunately, where you are now dehumanizing each other to the point that the white people are starting to see the Muslims as enemy combatant or people that are like a virus from the UK and not part of the UK, and we need to
But you're
start.
allied to someone who does that, right?
Hold on.
So we
Hold on,
need to
Let's
start-
go to the source. Why is there tension between the West and Muslims? Because the West claim that they do not like the Islamic ideology. They believe it's violent. They believe we're here to take over. The Islamic Muslim people don't like the West because of them attacking us. Because remember, we have all the major wars happen in the last 20 years in the Middle East and Muslim countries. Yeah, before 9/11.
It's Western countries invading Muslims. When is
Right.
the Muslim countries invading
Right,
us in the last 20 years?
hold
We've
on,
invaded
hold on.
Iraq, we've invaded
Right.
Libya, we've invaded
Yes.
Afghanistan.
Yes.
We support Israel.
Yes.
Who's the
Big
real
up
aggressor
Israel.
here?
Yeah,
And before the Iraqi invasion,
And Palestine.
hold on. Before the Iraqi invasion, before the Afghani invasion, there was no suicide bombs. It didn't exist.
Exactly.
Muslims
There's
did
no
not.
Al-Qaeda in
9/11
Iraq.
was a
There's no
suicide
Al-Qaeda in
bomb.
Iraq.
Before 9/11,
Oh,
before
ISIS didn't
9/11,
exist.
before
ISIS
Afghanistan,
didn't
before
exist.
Iraq, There was no suicide bombs. It
What's
didn't
9/11 then?
It didn't exist before.
9/11
I said to you before.
No, but Afghanistan happened after.
Well, hold on.
After
9/11.
9/11.
9/11 is very questionable.
No. This
For
is where.
me,
This is where you
personally,
start.
9/11
This is where you
is
start.
very questionable.
This is where we start getting a
Because
problem.
This is where we go
Because
to
in white,
try-
Of all the things
when
they
people
found
start
in the plane,
hearing
we
this,
found the passport.
when we start hearing this, we
we
start
found the
questioning
Muslim
you.
man's passport.
We start questioning you. We're like, all right, if you don't think it was done by Muslims 9/11, then I'm going to start questioning you. If you think 7/11,
Based
who
on
done
certain
7/11?
evidence,
Who done 7/11?
I don't know, mate. I'm just talking
You
about
don't know.
9/11. I'm talking about 9/11.
All right, so who done the Manchester bombing?
I'm talking about 9/11.
No, who done the Manchester bombing?
Based on what the evidence that I have seen on 9/11, I feel like it's a pre-constructed,
All right.
pre-planned false flag
All
attack.
right, so 7/11, who done 7/11?
They use this to deflect though.
No, we're not defending.
You are focusing on the
I'm
point.
asking a question because
Okay,
the same way
7/7,
I
yeah?
would say.
The UK is not supposed to have high-tech security. I'm not supposed to have the MI-15. How can they allow such terrorist group to perform such a huge bombing in such a huge stadium? I refuse to believe that the police didn't catch these people before they committed these attacks.
So all right. So the police are incompetent, or maybe by your logic, you're trying to
Sometimes
insinuate
the
that maybe
system
they let
is
it happen.
corrupt.
But I'm
System is
asking you, was it a
corrupt.
Muslim guy that done the terrorist attack in Manchester? The same
Allegedly,
way.
yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
So-
But if he was a true Muslim, he wouldn't have done that.
All right, but he was a Muslim.
If that's what he
corrupted
says he
Muslim,
claims to be.
a
yeah.
corrupted Muslim, the same way that this individual who done the terrorist attack in Thingy is a white person, but he's a corrupted white
Do you think
person.
he's a corrupted white supremacist?
Of course he is, he's evil
So
shit.
you're saying they're a legitimate white supremacist?
Don't just get yourself a United Island. Don't say that.
Why can't you answer my point,
Let me say,
Seba?
there's no legitimate
See, it's a
white
terminology.
supremacy.
It's one way for
White
us and a different way
supremacy
for them.
is bad, and being an Irish supremacist is
How am I
bad as well.
supremacist? I don't think Irish
He
people are
wants
better than
to
anybody.
United Ireland. So
How's that supremacy?
He don't
How's that
think he's
supremacy?
white. He doesn't think he's white. I think he thinks he's
When have I
some kind
said
of new
that?
race.
Now, Rod, you're lying.
He is
Irish
Irish.
race.
He's
You're
Irish.
lying.
Irish.
Now
Oh,
you're lying,
Irish or not
Rod.
white? He's as
You're
pink
lying.
as him.
Who said that? I've never said that.
Actually, he's more pink than
Raj,
him.
have I ever said that?
I thought you was a ginger when I first met
Have
you.
I ever said that?
I'm not white, I'm
You're
pink,
lying
actually.
through your teeth.
I thought he was a ginger
You're
when I
lying
first
through
met
your
you. That's
teeth
how
to
white he
deflect.
was.
Yeah, but
You're
we
lying
don't-
through
we
your
don't
ginger.
have to get personal now. you
No,
know
I'm
what
just saying he looked like a ginger
Yeah,
when I
come
first
on.
met
because
you.
he's
No, but Raj, that's what they do.
He's
Raj,
more
you do
pink
that
than you,
though.
but he doesn't think
to
he's
the
white.
point.
So, all
to
right,
the
so
point.
let's get back to the point here. So, what I'm saying is that the best solution is that one thing I truly believe is that we need to start uniting, and he's not going to like this, under the umbrella of being British as well, yeah? So what I'm saying is this. Look, I can condemn the colonial past. I'm actually doing a drawing, like I said before, about the Amritsar massacre, where the British killed 1,500 Sikhs. I'm talking about Sikhs and some Indians, unarmed, yeah? I'm doing a drawing of that, and I condemn that evil for doing that. And General Dyer, sorry, I don't condone violence, but let's just say he didn't last very long afterwards, yeah? Big up Uttam Singh.
All right.
Hung him, Raj.
Moving on.
Anyway,
Hung 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
So basically, yeah, I condemn that, but I still believe, yeah, in order for us to move forward as a, let's just say, all of these disparate communities, we need to unite under the umbrella of something. And one of those things that we can unite under is being British. So if you're British, I'm British Punjabi Sikh. You know, you can, I'm not sure if you are, but you can be British, blah, 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 or British Somalian Muslim, or British Gujarati Hindu, and all that kind of stuff.
You're asking people to betray
All British and white.
And so,
he's a white
For
guy,
me,
can't you
being
say?
British doesn't
I'm
mean
not
anything.
British.
It's
I'm
a
not British.
He's a
citizenship.
white guy.
I thought it was Hitler's son.
Yeah, I'm not British.
So basically,
But being British is just a citizenship. For
but
me,
what
it
I'm
doesn't
saying
mean
to
a
you
lot
is that
to me.
what I'm
Yeah, I'm
saying
British,
that-
but I'm more Muslim, more Arab.
all right,
Because
that's
that
fine.
makes
That's
me who I
fine.
am.
That's
British
fine.
citizenship.
That's fine. I'm not
It's a citizenship.
asking you to put it into order. I'm not asking that.
No,
What
I'm not putting it in
what
order,
I'm
but
saying
I'm
to you is
saying-
that if you don't have that component in there, like I truly believe, yeah, this Raj that you see, you may hate me or like me, I don't give a shit. But this Raj is made
Yes,
up
you
of three.
do.
I don't know why.
You got.
I do love the hate. I do love the
skin.
hate.
You got a thin
So
skin, Raj.
basically, yeah, when it comes to you got a fat skin. No doubt about that. Lose some weight, you fat.
Right,
I'm
right.
fat as well.
Right.
If anyone says
Let's
I lost 2.5
not
stones,
be
start
rude.
losing
Can't look you in
weight.
the eye, this
Let's
Any
not be
fatties
rude.
out there, yeah?
Can't look
So
you in the eye.
basically, yeah, I lost 2.5 stones, so I can say it, yeah? So basically, yeah, when it comes to this situation, I'm British by nationality, yeah? So there's certain things like my humour and stuff that is very British, yeah?
You have humour?
But then there's other,
Can we see that?
There's other things like being
You've got very dark
Punjabi. Yeah, I'm
humour.
very Punjabi in certain areas, yeah, and then I'm Sikh in other areas, yeah. In terms of I'm Sikh by my faith and other stuff. So I'm a component of all three of these very disparate groups, yeah. So British, Punjabi, Sikh. And I truly believe that, you know, the narrative you can't be British is problematic. And I hear some people from different sides saying, the white people saying, white race saying, oh, you're Muslim, you can't be British.
Yes.
No, you can be British and you are British. And then you have, and then you, oh no.
As long as they-
then you
as long as they
have,
fall into
then you
your
have some
line, yeah?
other individuals say, extremist Muslims saying, no, you cannot have nationality and you can't be British. And both
No,
of
I
those,
don't
both,
think
what
we're
I'm
happens?
getting off the subject here.
But what I'm saying, I'm
Getting
trying to
off
give you a
subject.
solution that if
I
we,
do, that's
if
fine.
we
The
are,
solution
if we
is
have
to tell the
if
West
we have
to stop
a
attacking
united
Muslims.
identity,
Leave
yeah?
us alone.
I think can I?
That is the
let me
solution.
finish, let me
Tell
finish.
the West to
One
stop
moment.
invading Arab
Hold on,
countries
hold
and
on.
stop
So,
killing
let me
Muslims.
just say one thing. If you have this united identity, what would happen is that it would be harder
Just
for
leave us
somebody
alone.
to
Leave us
dehumanize
alone.
somebody that they see as a fellow citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
My view is this, that Europe has always had a problem with minorities. If we
Right.
go back in our history, look at the way we treated the Jews, going back into Elizabethan times, we've had a problem with
You're upstaging
Catholics
me, man.
in the 19th century, we've had a problem with black immigrants in the 1950s and 1960s. Now the big problem is the Muslims. And historically we've had problems. And the way we dealt with the problem goes from peaceful tolerance to extermination on the other hand. Extermination obviously in Germany and in other parts of the Eastern Europe to just about tolerance for other minorities. We've got a terrible track record when it comes to dealing with
White
minorities.
people do things pretty crazy.
So
sometimes.
the question is, just having a British identity. I think that is ideally a solution. I think it's a bit.
I think it's a
bit simplistic.
It's very simplistic.
And it seems to be only
but
ever.
sometimes the best
hang on,
solutions
hang
are
on, right, right.
simple.
It seems to me that we only ever learn the lesson. So we only learn the lesson about how we treat Jews after we have a Holocaust. To wake us up to the problem. We only learn how to treat black people after a whole raft of appalling cases come up, and suddenly we realise what we've been doing. We always seem to learn the lesson the hard way. I don't know why we're like that. Maybe we're just stupid. But so my worry now is we're going to learn the lesson the hard way, that we don't treat Muslims as this terrible subversive evil threat, which is your mate Tommy Robinson's line when he demonises and hates us and creates this extremist narrative. Do we have to go through all over again like we've done in the past with all these other minorities when we realise actually Muslims are men and women and children who have jobs, they have their concerns. What are their concerns? They're about the education of their children, it's about paying the mortgage or not paying the mortgage, they're about how to survive, it's about how to have a decent life, it's how we treat our neighbours, it's how we live our life. We have British people, white British people, have 90% in common with Muslims because we're all, wait for it, human beings living in the West. And we have to get on. We have the same problems about Brexit, about the bloody weather, about the price in Tesco's. It's all the same stuff we all have to deal with. Now, yes, Muslims are not going to drink alcohol down your local pub, but hey, neither do a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians don't. Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that. The Sikhs don't do it. There's room for tolerance here. But do we have to go through the same catastrophes that we've been through before with the Jews and others before we learn they're actually were basically human? We have those same common experiences about bringing up our children, about crime, about knife crime, about drugs, about what our children are exposed to at school in terms of the teaching, about the weather, about Brexit. Well, these are common things. We share so much in common. And Muslims are not looking to impose a caliphate on Britain or to bring in Sharia law, whatever that means. That is another false narrative, an extremist narrative to demonise, which Tommy Robinson's doing. So I'm saying is, maybe we're going to have to go through the pain before we get through better times. Maybe at the end of the day, your narrative will win out. But I think in the meantime, it's not enough because we've got a lot of struggle to do, and we've got to. People like you need to disassociate yourself from people like Tommy Robinson, who are far right extremists, who are part of the problem, not part of the solution. If you want to be part of the solution, then get on the right side of the fence. Stop
Only
being on the
Ali
wrong
Diva
side.
has a tissue boy. I'll make it when I got a tissue boy, that's for sure.
So that's my view.
Also the
Hang on, this
media,
dude wants to say something.
Anyone want to apply?
No, this dude wants to say something. This guy here, the guy who's dressed unusually, shall we say?
It's gonna be unusually.
I don't know what to make of this.
I noticed you said we're all human, and
I know,
we've got to
revolutionary
realise.
statement. I hope everybody.
Are we? Am I?
Tell me something I don't know.
I thought I was the Terminator.
You was pushing human and humanity.
Robot.
And the
what you
things
just
we have
said.
in common, which are like 90% of
Yeah,
what,
okay.
all these boring things like school
Yeah,
and
I
mortgage.
understand. Oh, yeah,
But this
I got all
matters.
that. I
We
got all
forget
that.
all this.
I got all
We
that.
have a
We're all
lot in
human.
common.
We have a lot in
I got all
common.
that. I got all that.
Yeah.
I got all that. Do you think it is possible to behave in a humane way if you throw away your history and your culture? Cultural values and ethnic values.
I want to separate the video.
If you
Sorry.
throw them away.
You're thinking about English people. throwing away their history. Is that what you mean? Or
You okay still to record?
No, as a principle.
I don't know the answer to that
Only
question.
you gloves.
I don't know. I don't know.
You need to
I
pay
don't think
someone
about that.
to hold your camera.
I think
but-
if someone is primarily
All I do
Muslim,
is not
they have a
abuse
history and culture which is part of the Quran, it's
my
part of
tradition.
the
Close
Ummah.
up.
Even if they cease being British
about
or
that.
English, they still have
wanna
values and tradition to
traumatise
draw
you.
on
They
through the Quran, through the Sunnah, through the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the way he lived his life. So we have this kind of universal template that we can take wherever we go, whether it be in Alaska or London or wherever. We don't need that local culture to give us that,
I don't think you're in the.
perhaps.
But can I also say something? The media has a very big part to play in the way that Muslims are portrayed, and a very dangerous way that they're
you
doing
get
it,
in the
right?
middle 'cause this
If you look at
involves a
Shamima
conversation.
Begum, we all know
I'm
about
still being
Shamima
there,
Begum.
Yeah, move your-
Show the camera your marvellous uniform.
He's even
Everyone, a lot of
outstaged
people
me.
have seen
He
it.
has. Raj is outstaged by someone, upstaged by someone.
Different style. Different style.
I can't stand it without my backpack.
No, he hasn't got
And it's
style.
blue.
That is something.
Because I got my backpack. So when I got my backpack, I look a bit more.
But can I say something, yeah? You see Shamima Begum, yeah? Her third child has just died, right, in the refugee camp. And I think it was the Guardian, or
No,
one of
Metro.
the Metro
Yeah, that was wrong.
referred to her baby, her dead baby, as a jihadi baby, right? Now that is very, very dangerous because I feel like the media
Was that the Metro in London?
The
I
Metro.
don't know why-
Ali Dawah actually went and confronted them at their head office.
Good.
But these people, they're using these terms which they probably don't even understand, because what does jihad mean? It's so unfortunate that a word like jihad has only been associated with Muslims and terrorists and suicide bombings. Jihad means struggle, right? So you can struggle with yourself, with your temptations. You know, jihad is not just to go out and fight in the way of God. Jihad starts within. So if you're trying to become a better person and you have these temptations and sometimes, you know, you fall back into sin, that is jihad. Jihad is trying to fight your nafs.
the nafs.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
nafs,
don't
you
normally
understand?
agree with Ali Dawah, the only guy with the tissue boy. I
Right.
don't normally agree with him. Yeah, he's made it, man. He's a big time diva now. So basically, when it comes to him, I admit, yeah, that particular video, I agreed with. Like, normally he talks a load of baloney, but that time I was like, all right, why would you refer to our baby as a jihadi baby? The baby has not done anything.
Yeah,
The
that's what I'm
baby is a
saying to you.
newborn baby.
It's the media as well. They
You're
got some
demonizing
white
and putting
guy.
the sins of the parents onto the baby,
Yeah,
which is
there
wrong.
was a white guy, right? He was making homemade bombs in his house, and he had public figures on his board, and he threw darts at them. And one of them was Obama, one of them was a Duchess, and I think he had some other public figures on there. And he was making homemade bombs, and they never once referred to him as a terrorist or even a potential terrorist.
Yeah, this is a
Rather,
problem.
they said he was a right-wing extremist, right? But when a Muslim does something, he was referred to as a terrorist. Now, for me, that hits me very hard because I know Islam. Imagine you're trying to promote something good and someone promotes it as it's being bad, right? And people believe that it's more bad than it is good. And the truth is, Islam means peace. It is a way of life. It's so unfortunate that a way of life which originates from peace is being called a terrorist, violent religion.
I don't want to be controversial, but when I hear the
Really,
word,
you controversial?
look here. I don't mind you saying, you know, Islam is a beautiful religion, Islam is a way of life, Islam, you know, is the right way. But using the word peace, that isn't the
Peace.
word
there
that
are
kind of.
concepts of war, the same in other religions.
I know,
the same
I'm
in
not-
Christian-
let me just say
This
something,
is
the Sikhs are not
you guys love to
pacifists.
target the negative part
No,
of
no, I'm
Islam.
just saying
or,
that-
or what you
think
perceive to
it
be a
brings
negative
peace with
part of
God.
Islam.
I think
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
better.
It brings
Yeah.
peace with God because you're focusing on something other than your own
Yeah.
disorder and so on. So in that sense, but
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
think for one word sums up Islam for me. Really, is justice. It brings justice, and with
The
justice,
Sharia.
and with justice comes peace. Because
Come on, dude. You'd be killed under
jihad
Sharia.
is
he wouldn't.
no, I wouldn't.
He wouldn't.
Actually,
If you was
This is why you don't
practicing-
understand Islam.
This is a cheap shot. Well, if you were committing adultery in public, you'd
No.
be killed. I mean, what kind of argument's that? I don't practice that, so I'd be perfectly fine. I know this. I've spoken to
You're like a chicken that
Islamic
likes
scholars about it.
No, but you want to speak about extremism
like a
within
chicken that
Islam.
likes
What about
rice.
death row?
No,
What
just
about
cheap.
other
Cheap.
corruption
Sorry, I
happens?
apologise.
Yeah.
I was cheap.
Cheap, as always.
Sorry. I apologise, Paul. I apologise.
Do you think that Muslim culture or the culture of Islam fits in with British culture?
Yes, it can. Of course, it can. Because the five.
Oh, hold
fundamental-
it. Do you think it does?
Yes,
Or
it
it
does.
can.
It does. It does. It does.
I think it can, but it doesn't properly
Islam
at the
doesn't
moment.
oppress or go against the British law or the British way of life. It doesn't, right? The
Really?
5 fundamental foundations of Islam Yeah, one of them is praying 5 times a day, right? We have mosques where we can specifically pray. We can pray in our house. Some people pray in the public. Unless there is a law passed that you cannot pray in the public, I don't see what the problem with that is, yeah? Some of the Muslims are ordered to wear headscarf, right? Why is somebody's dress code affecting you? Because you're wearing your little outfit, he's wearing his outfit, I ain't got a problem with it. So if somebody's wearing a headscarf based on their religious duties, I don't think people should have a problem with it. And a lot of Western people, regardless of the extremism, regardless of ISIS, they still don't like Muslims based on the way that they dress, based on the way that they pray. They think that we are kind of invading and trying to, you know, they want to preserve the white race.
But you do know that the West was much more traditional. If you look
Yes,
back at
I know.
photos, it's kind of like, look, there's an extreme on both sides. The West has become an extremist in terms of
They
liberalism.
have become very
So
intolerant.
they think that, you know, aborting babies is normal, that this is normal, that, you know, walking around in a certain... Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't walk around in a certain way, but I just prefer traditional values in the sense of a traditional family and stuff. It doesn't mean I hate the other. And so there is an extreme on both sides. And I agree the West has become quite degenerate
And very
in its
intolerant.
kind of losing of its traditional
And
values.
they feel like they have a superiority over people
So
because
what's
they're
happening?
white.
No, but what's happening is then you have another group that's come in who are very traditional,
Right.
Like, and so they become that way.
It's a clash of cultures.
And so
Right.
and one has become
That's
that
the
way.
point.
I think if Muslims come in the 20s, I don't think you'd have as many problems because in the 20s the traditional values were much more strict.
It's a culture clash.
so what's happening?
Because they feel like they're advanced and they feel like we're backwards.
Right, okay,
They
good,
say we're
good.
getting more modern.
All right,
You're
good.
doing things differently.
Right, good, right. So, I think what you said there was quite good. You said it's a culture clash. So if there's a culture clash,
Big up, big up.
But not on our side though. It's on their side. They're offended by us.
I'll
We're
say
not
later,
offended
big
by
up,
them.
mate.
Right, you're going to go.
We're not offended by
Take care,
them.
man. Right, yeah, big up,
Take
big
care,
up.
sir, yeah? No, but can I say something, sir, yeah? We're not offended by them because as a Muslim coming into the West, you have to come in with the intention that you are entering a whole new different way of life, right? There are Muslim countries where majority of people are Muslim, you're all going by one rule. But once you decide to step into a Western country, you're going to have to accept their way of life as well. And you're going to have to be able to integrate with each other. And what we do have is a lot of extremist Muslims who come here, who try to force their religion, force their way of life on other people, and they do not have the right to do so. In Islam, we have to abide by the law of the land. So in Sharia, if somebody goes and steals, you have to cut their hands off. But that contradicts the law of the land because if we're going to cut their hand off, the law of the land says you
Are
will go
you
to jail
okay
for
with
that.
doing that if there was a Sharia compliant
But
land?
listen, okay, if you know your hand's going to get cut off if you steal, would you go and steal?
No, but if you...
And plus, this law doesn't apply to poor, hungry people. This applies to robbers and thieves maliciously going out and stealing. Plus, before you even cut their hands off, there is a court system, right? You have to have witnesses. You also get warnings as well. It's not like, all right, he stole, cut his hands off. Don't work like that.
Zuida, can I say,
right?
I don't want to get into because I'm going to start. I'm trying to be polite today and be respectful. So let's not get into the Sharia because I'll start ranting and raving.
But I'm just explaining.
Yeah,
to you
no. But I'm
the
just for
concept.
myself because you know I've a look like Tourette's that when I start hearing certain things I start spouting on stuff. So today because of the situation with the terrorists, I don't want to be going around being negative
Fine.
out of respect. So next week I'll be back and I'll be starting doing my things. But one of the things, like I said, yeah, is that I do truly believe that there is a solution, and I do think that Muslims are British and part of the UK and the West. They have their place, like the Sikhs had their place and other minorities. The only situation I see is that we have two societies that are total polar opposites now. At one point, they might have been more similar just 100 years ago.
Yes.
If you look at the way Britain was, it was much more in
They
line.
used to wear headscarf. You saw
Yeah,
that
and
picture?
let me just say something. My sister wears a headscarf. It's called a chunni. She
Yes,
doesn't
yes.
go out without it. My mum wears it. She doesn't go out without it.
Sikhs
So
wear
the
it.
Sikhs wear it as well. So we have a lot in common in terms of it's not called a hijab, we call it a chunni. And so we believe in covering hair. I believe in traditional values. I believe that intoxicants and stuff are wrong. I used to drink, so I know, and I stopped 6 years ago. And look what I've become.
It's better for you.
become-
Sometimes, you know, when
They
Islam,
probably
people
want me to
say,
start drinking
oh,
again.
Islam is very strict. You can't drink alcohol, you can't smoke drugs, you can't commit adultery. But if you actually look at the benefits of not committing adultery, not drinking alcohol, not taking drugs, it's more better for you rather than to do these things. You understand what I'm saying to you? Because
Yeah, we know that, but we don't want to impose this
no,
on
of
people.
course,
to
of
make
course,
a
of
decision.
course, of course,
Yeah,
Of course, we know
of
that, you know,
of course.
drinking is wrong. I can testify to that. Drinking, the reason why religions ban it all these intoxicants because you cannot think properly. And I've done stuff when I'm
There are many risks in
intoxicated
health,
that I would never do again. So although you have certain things that are a right way of life, we cannot impose that on other people. People need to come to that decision
Yes, of
themselves and
course.
make that decision. So it's not. So like I said, like, you know, there is a big drinking culture within the West. Yeah. Now, one of the things I've realised is that little things can make a difference. Like, for me, I stopped drinking 6 years ago. My brother's never drank in his life. He's a full baptized Sikh. But he walks into pubs and he sits with his mates in pubs. And the reason I still do it is because, all right, this is a place where there are people, like majority white people, that like to go there. I disagree with them drinking. But I can sit there with a Coke, or I can sit there with that. The pub is not going to make me drink.
Right.
So you can, certain areas, I've seen it a lot here. Like, you know, I remember when I was working.
But
at a place,
Muslims
and
are not going to go
say-
into a pub to integrate with people.
No,
That's
but-
your
but
message.
I'm not saying to go into the pub to integrate with people. What I'm saying is that there are certain places that, you know, there's certain people you'd never meet that congregate. And once in a while, say if there was a birthday, because I've had it in the past that, you know, someone say there's a birthday party from work, and 2 or 3 individuals say we can't go into a pub, and I'm like, dude, you know, you don't have to drink. Let's just go. And what it does is like, it makes them others start thinking, okay, this person's quite unreasonable. They want to distance themselves. I'm not saying going into the pub is a good thing. Going into a pub is not a good thing. But
But there are other
sometimes
ways. Remember, Muslims and non-Muslims, they in workplaces and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as you said earlier on, you see a culture clash between the culture of Islam or Muslim culture
Yes.
and British culture.
Yes.
So what do you think is a solution to that?
I think the British people need to practice tolerance, because I've heard some of their arguments, right? I was watching a video of an area up north, and there was a huge rise in Asian people moving within to that community, and they interviewed a white guy and they said, you know, are you happy that these Asians are moving in? He said, no, I don't want to live next to them. He said, why? Because they're going to be cooking Asian food and I don't want to smell Asian food.
And they
It's
love
just
Indian
simple,
food.
simple little things like that, right? Now, remember, we Muslims came here. We didn't come to their country. So we came into your place knowing full well what we're going to expect, right? They have not been very welcoming to us, because as any Muslim that complains about the British culture, about the way of life, akhi, you can go back home. I am born here, and I don't really have that kind of choice because this is all I know. You understand? But you do have a lot of foreigners coming here complaining about the UK. We don't like the UK, the culture, da da da. The UK allows us to practice our religion, right? How many mosques are there in London alone, right? There's mosques everywhere, alhamdulillah, yeah? Majority of Muslims get to be religious, get to wear their headscarf, get to pray 5 times a day. But you do have the British people who have a problem with our way of life. So it has to come from them first, because we're not coming here attacking you. We're not coming here. Hold on. Because you know this whole Muslim and versus the West thing, yeah? Like I said before, they came into our country and they came in with guns and tanks and their armies with the intention to kill us. We have not come here with that same intention. We have come, like my father, for instance, he was an Iraqi refugee. Yeah, he was fleeing a war-torn country because of what the West had done to his country. He could have come here thinking he was seeking revenge. No, he didn't do that. He came here, saw safety, he saw refuge in this country. My father was working as a bus driver for over 20 years. He was a civilized person, bought a house, raised his family here. And that's how the majority of Muslims come here. They don't come here thinking, right, we want to seek revenge, we want to kill the West. No, not the way that they done to us. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? If this country is a so-called liberated country, we're supposed to be living in peace together, then you should allow people to practice their religion until it oppresses you. Islam doesn't oppress people. Now, I will have to be honest here, we do have extremists on our side. That is a fact, and this is what fuels
Try
the
not
hatred.
to say something.
Yeah?
I'm really polite today.
Hello? This is what fuels the hatred, yeah? Because when we have extremists on our side saying to us, oh, we want to take over the West and, you know, kill all the Westerners, that is wrong. That is wrong. So we have to tackle the extremists on both sides, right? Tommy Robinson, he is a hate figure and he has a lot of hateful people following him. They have to change the whole narrative.
Can I just say something? Because I'll let you go. The thing is, one of the things that's quite strange is that when my family come in the 70s, there was this saying for Indians smelling food, yeah?
It's the number one dish.
Now you go to the supermarket, what? You've
I'm
got a
saying-
whole... so what
When
it
they're all
is,
drunk
yeah?
and that, they wanna
what
come
it
get
is,
curry.
what happens is that these people aren't necessarily racist. What they are is they're fearful of the other. But what happens is if they truly are reasonable people, they will adjust their views. Now, if they're full-on racist and they don't care what you do, they're lost. We cannot do nothing with these people. But the Indian food thing is quite a weird thing because at one point they used to complain, oh, it stinks, it's this. Then you have now I have people like my sisters and white people coming around. Oh yeah, that smells nice. So this is how people can kind of acclimatize, yeah. And this is one very trivial thing. No, very trivial thing, but it shows you that something that could be seen as being kind of disgusting at one point and alien to them become the natural Indian, natural national dish.
National
dish.
Hold that point there. It's a very strong point. So we were talking about culture, right? Muslim or the culture of Islam and British culture, and then you started to talk about food, right? So there's a very close connection, in my opinion, between food and culture. Food springs from the culture of the people. Yes?
That's right.
So the environment as well.
So it's not a light from the environment. Right, so it's not a light subject. Food is not a light subject.
So look, we're in Edgware Road is right here, yeah? Edgware Road, the whole strip is Arabic restaurants. Lebanese, Middle Eastern food. I go there, see white people there chilling, eating our food. So you're right. Food can unite the people.
Okay, watch this now, but watch this.
Food
now
can
we're
unite the
going to move a slightly higher, more intense level. You just said, correct me if I'm wrong, that food, Indian food, can become the national dish.
At one point it was a national dish.
National
I think
dish,
it's Chinese now.
National dish of where?
Well, of the United Kingdom.
Did you hear that? So Indian food can become the national dish of
I think
the United Kingdom.
Yes.
National dish. So you say it can become. So can you see that the British people can see the pattern of the food, and then they might see the pattern of Islam and Muslim as overtaking their culture. So they're going to be upset if they start thinking that, oh, you Muslims, you don't like drinking, so that means in the long term, if we work out the time, you're going to try and, not consciously or...
this is not purposely.
Wipe out the pubs.
No, that's a lie.
All right, so
we don't have the intentions of doing that. We cannot do that.
You just said.
We cannot.
I know, but listen carefully to the flow of the conversation. We were talking about the culture of Islam, the culture of Muslim. We're talking about British culture, which we understand British culture to be a drinking culture and consuming alcohol. So and then you were intensifying it by saying food and drink are emblems of a culture. And then you were saying that the food and drink can become the national, hear the word? National dish.
So some people hearing that might have thought, oh, Indian food is now the national dish, thinking that we're taking over.
That's right. That's the point I make. That's the point I'm
making. Because it used to be fish and chips. There you go. That's the Indian dish.
That's the point. So all of a sudden, this Muslim drink and Muslim food and Muslim culture will override British.
I mean, I've used the analogy of this year. Hold on, let me just say that I've used the analogy of this year. That I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. That if I was to go Punjab, where my people are from, and there's such a rich culture, food, language, and I was to go there, and all of a sudden there was 30% Chinese people.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, certain areas have changed. Chinese food.
Right.
Now, I would not hate the Chinese, but I would be like, concerned.
What's going on? Exactly.
So there's not hatred of the people.
Hear that word?
So what I'm saying, Islam is not the majority of the world.
We're not saying about Islam.
There are more histories there. There's more other people influencing the culture. There are more other cultures influencing the British culture than the Islamic culture.
What we're saying, no, we're not saying
Asian
Islam.
culture, the African culture, the Caribbean culture. They've been here way before us.
No, we didn't say that. We didn't say that.
But when it's the Muslims,
no, we didn't say that. We didn't say that. We're talking about all of us, because we are all a problem to some of these people. So what we're saying is that I'm just trying to say that if I was to
they don't like you, they don't like you, they don't like me.
If I was to go to the Punjab and there was suddenly 30% Chinese, I do not hate the Chinese.
There you
but
go.
I would start thinking my culture is eroding. And so what is happening in the UK, I think these are people that don't hate us specifically, but I hate the fact that they're seeing their way of life
But
changing.
Britain is 80%
Now,
white,
I
bro.
will say something.
It's in the cities. Look, London is different to Derbyshire. London is different to Kent.
It doesn't
London
mean
is
it's
different
rational.
to Surrey.
Hold on,
The
hold on.
majority is England is 80%
Hold on,
white, bro.
let me just clarify something.
It's 80%
Let me just clarify
white.
something. This is not coming from rationality. It's an irrational thought to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So it's not about rationality. You can be. I could say I'm scared of that tree, and you can say no, the tree's not scary.
Well, that's
If I
right, that's
truly
right,
believe
that's
the
right.
tree's
It's
scary.
not my
That's
fault.
right.
I can
These
still be
people
the
are
fear.
deluded.
So
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying to you is that there is this.
The British people are deluded.
I think so. No,
Sorry,
no,
are you saying the British
I
people are
think
deluded?
Those people that have these rational thoughts that Muslims are trying to attack them, that is a form of delusion.
Yeah, that is delusion. That is delusion.
Just by looking at a
Attacking.
Muslim and saying, oh my God, it's a Muslim, he's ready to kill me. Look, I used to wear the headscarf, right? Just the fact I used to wear a headscarf, I used to get looks on looks. I used to have someone put the Nazi sign at me just for wearing my thing, you know what I'm saying to you? Because they're deluded, because they have this mindset that every Muslim is out to get them, every Muslim is a potential terrorist. That is delusion.
But those people are lost, and there's no way of getting through to them.
And Raj, they're
But there are
illusion
people
for
that are
jizya.
there are people that
People
may
know about
think
jizya.
like this
Yeah,
now.
illusional.
But if you was to talk to them and start to kind of people need to speak to each other and not demonize each other when they're raising their concerns. So if someone says to you, look, when I go to this area, you know, all the pubs have shut down and all of this, I don't feel comfortable. There's no point going, oh, you're racist. You should start asking them, why do you feel uncomfortable? What is the problem if there's no pubs there?
Yeah.
You know, drinking
You know
isn't
what?
that
I'll
good.
give you a good
But do
example.
you understand how you can tackle it?
I'll give you a good
Yeah,
example.
that's right, that's
I'll give you a
right,
good
that's right.
example, yeah? I was in Essex, right? I was in a little village in Essex and I was on my way home and I was waiting at the bus stop. And the bus stops there, not like London, they come like every 45 minutes. So there's this one white lady there. And me and her started having a little conversation. And I was like, where you going or whatever? She goes, I'm going down to London. I said, oh yeah, that's where I'm from. She was like, without telling her I'm Muslim or anything like that, she said to me, oh, well, you know, in London, there's a lot of Muslims there. I said, yeah, there is, yeah? And she goes, well, what I find about them is that they're not really friendly. You know, they don't like to give people smiles and stuff. You know, I was there and I was smiling at them and they weren't smiling at me back. And at this point, I didn't tell her I was Muslim. And she was she wasn't being racist, but she had this perception of Muslims, right? I said to her, look, by the way, I'm Muslim. And she goes, oh, you know, I'm really sorry, I didn't try to offend you. I said, no, I didn't find you offensive at all. I said, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, maybe they were just having a bad day. Maybe they didn't smile back at you because they was having a bad day. But not to say that all Muslims are not friendly, because I'm a Muslim. I'm having a conversation with you. We're laughing. We're having a chat. You know what I'm saying to you? So sometimes with people, you're right. We can't just, oh, you're racist. You can't fight fire
You
with
need
fire.
to ask them what their problem is. Like, I'm going to give
You
one
can't
more.
fight fire
I've said
with
this.
fire
I've said this
sometimes.
before, 3 times, but I think it's important. When I was 16, I'd come from a multicultural area. I had to go to a place called Romford. At that time in the 80s, it was all white.
Right.
So when I went there, I swear to God, I felt like everyone hated me because they were looking at me, and I was so uncomfortable. I didn't go back for maybe 15 years. Now that was in my head. You know, these people may have been looking at me because I'm wearing a turban. They've not seen the turban before and stuff like that. But in my own head, it was a real fear. I felt an outcast, and I felt scared going back to that area. I thought people are going to be hostile to me. This is the problem with a lot of white people. I think when they go into an area, that area is not scary in real life. It's not. No one's going to get attacked.
Right.
There's no such thing as a no-go zone here. But in their own brain, they've got this mental hang-up that when they walk in that area and they're the only white person, they're fearful for themselves and the way they feel like a minority in that group. That is an irrational fear, though, and white people need to understand they can walk into any area.
That's fine. It's your country.
It's not a problem.
It's your place.
But can I
Do your thing, man.
Can I say
Yes,
that
sir.
if we go to a more subtle view of what you're saying, that the fear comes, might not necessarily be of violence, but if you see your culture diminishing, that is almost something like you diminishing. Does that make
I think the
sense?
British culture is very much alive, though. We cannot. The British culture is very much alive. I feel its presence, right? I don't feel when I'm walking around the streets, I feel the British culture more than I do the Islamic culture or the Caribbean culture. I feel the Britishness here.
But Zabuda, this is not a rational thought. So we have to understand. People are thinking. Like you know, you can have somebody.
It's not logic then.
It's not logic, but that doesn't mean that the fear is not real. So
Yes,
somebody
that's right.
So somebody could be scared of a spider. That spider can't do nothing to you, but you are so scared you want to run away.
But you know what? So,
Can I just say one thing? Sorry.
I don't like the hypocrisy. How the British people are trying to play this victim role of fear. Oh, we fear the Muslims when they have a history of attacking and colonizing other people. You understand what I'm saying to you? So let's not try to play this victim role because
everybody's
when we
colonised
come into your
everybody.
country, country. We're not coming here to do what you've done to our
the Islamic
country.
conquest of
But
India
how would you
killed
prove
150
that?
million
No, but
Indians.
stop talking about your
compared to the
you're
British
talking about your
Empire,
team.
man.
150
Compared to
million
the British
Indians.
Empire,
Yes,
man.
yes,
Compared
yes.
to the British
To
Empire,
me,
which
has
is still doing the same
But what I'm
things
saying, what I'm
today.
saying that this
Doesn't
narrative
compare.
that is only the white people that have been conquering other people.
You're trying to compare
is,
it. Nah, you
I'm
can't
not
compare
comparing
You
it. What
can't
I'm saying,
compare.
what I'm saying to
If
you
a
is
youth
that
steals a Mars bar at a shop,
Hold on.
or someone holds a bank at gunpoint, which is the worst crime?
what I'm
They're
saying
both
to you,
crimes, but there's one that's
hold on,
much
hold on,
Yes.
hold
head
on.
and shoulders
But
above
for
the other.
me, this is a subjective thing here. For me, when people have come into my land here and they are chopping up my people and
You're
stuff
talking
like
about
that.
Muslims that
But
happen how
I'm
many
talking-
years
but
ago,
what
bro?
I'm talking about is that
Roger, I hate when you
no,
start
I'm
doing
not going to
this,
go
bro.
down this route because I don't want to go down this route. This is what I'm trying to be nice today. But what I'm trying to say is that this narrative of just the white man being the oppressor is a dangerous
It's in their
narrative
own
as well.
history books. They know
So
what
what
it
it is here is
In the
much more
21st
nuanced than that.
century.
So everybody has
Oh, shit, you
subjugated
can't, can
people,
you?
but I will say one thing: the West takes it to the next level of madness.
I don't
There's
like
no
them
doubt about that.
playing
yeah.
this victim
When it-
role.
no, what I'm saying-
Don't play the victim
Hold
role
on, what
too
I'm
much
saying-
because remember, there's got a lot of blood in your hands.
What I'm
You understand
saying-
what I'm saying to you? And we
it.
have the right to retaliate, and we're still not doing that.
Alright, so-
we're still not
You
doing
see the
that.
language? You
So-
hear the language?
so let me just say-
No, but
you,
sir,
said, you said right
yeah, we do.
to retaliate.
If you're being attacked, do you not have the right to defend yourself?
Yeah, you shouldn't be a
Yeah, I understand, but it's right to retaliate. So if
It's
you're,
different.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. But as a British, say as a British, a white person or a British white person, listen to what you just
I don't know
said.
if it's right to
Right?
do this today.
You'd be very difficult
But
for you to
what-
convince
so-
them.
This is what I'm saying, the hypocrisy. When they want to say, get out of our country, F off, we're supposed to retaliate to them with kindness. But the moment I say
Don't worry,
something,
I'll talk to you
oh,
later.
now
Don't
you're
go
disrespecting
today,
the white
though.
people, you're disrespecting the business people. I don't like the
not today,
hypocrisy,
though.
I don't like
After
double
this. Listen,
standards,
leave it
I
today.
don't like this
We'll do it
victim
next
role
week.
that folks are playing. Let's not do that. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because if you look at the history, you brought people here. You understand? You're complaining about the same problem that you caused. You talk about immigrants being here. Why are immigrants here in the first place? Because hold on, they were very happy where they were at, especially the Caribbeans. Do you know how beautiful the Caribbean was? Why would they want to leave that to come to here, fam? Unless they were brought over here. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah? With the Iraqi people, we've got a beautiful country as well. When you come down, bomb up the whole place, fam, where do you want us to go? You want to shit on our house, so we're going to come back to your house.
Now all right. So let me say something here. White people need the Europeans need to understand here. There is some blowback from some actions. My family had a British passport. Why have they got a British passport if they're from India? You're gonna have to ask yourself that. So they didn't come here illegal or anything. They just came here as legal residents.
But
So-
why is your
So the reason.
Why is one of your
Hold
national
on,
language
hold
in
on,
India?
hold
though?
on.
You're from
Don't play
India.
dumb.
Hold on, hold on.
You're from India.
Let me
Your
finish
national
my
language is English.
sentence.
Exactly.
Why are you speaking their language for?
Let me finish my
You have your own
sentence.
indigenous
Hold on,
language. Why are you
hold on.
speaking
Why you
British for?
calm down, everybody, man? Oh my God.
No, because you
Do I-
defend
Hold on,
people
what did I
too
just
much,
say?
bro.
Hold on,
You do
what did
it.
I say?
You
You
do
know,
it, Raj.
you're not even letting me finish my
do it,
sentence.
Raj.
I am
Why have
saying to
Indians got
you,
British passports?
I am saying to you the
Exactly.
reason,
forget.
the reason why we got
That's
British
just
passports is because
facts.
India was colonized by the British.
Yeah.
So obviously, because they colonized, we then have a right as a British citizen, and we came over. Yeah, and so the
And they
British
still treat you
people,
badly.
so the British people cannot then say, okay, why did you come over? You were in our lands, yeah. You made us a subject of your particular kingdom, and we are allowed to come over now because we got a British, we got a British passport.
out here
So
defending them.
I hope to God that everybody calms down now, because I wasn't saying nothing negative. Yeah? Everyone went mad. It's just, I didn't film it. Yeah? I didn't film it, but it looked like it was like some kind of like craziness just happened for a minute. I don't know
But
what I
At the
said.
end of the day, yeah, like, I don't think as Muslims we should retaliate. Any minority should retaliate, even regardless of the past. But I think the past should be acknowledged when folks are trying to play the victim role. Because when you want to start playing the victim role, hold on. How are you trying to cry wolf when you've done X, Y, and Z in the past? You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, I agree
And
with
there's
that.
not an excuse for us to say, you've done this to us, so we should do the same to you. No, we shouldn't retaliate in that same sense. You can't fight fire with fire. But at the same time, when folks want to say, why are these people coming into a country for? Hold on. Let's go back and see what you've done to the people. You know, you brought them over here, fam.
They do it all the time.
Look. I agree with you. I agree with you, yeah. I agree with you. Look, yeah, Britain is a multicultural society now because they colonized the world and they allowed, they went around and they went into countries, they conquered and done this and they've done some barbaric stuff, including slavery, which is one of the worst crimes against humanity. And now there is some form of blowback in the sense that for them, you gotta
Whilst they plan good plans,
gotta
and God is
understand
the highest
that
of planners.
if you go into our land and then you'll say you're now part of the British Kingdom, then I have a right to come to your land. I agree with you on that. What I don't agree is this kind of this narrative that all right, they've had a past and they've done a lot of bad things in the past. Now we are going to kind of come in here and say, look, we're just here. We're not part of the country. We're just here, and we're kind of going to take what we want because of what you've done in the past.
Yeah, no.
That's
What
what
we
they
need
did.
to
They
do,
came and took.
what we need
They
to
got
do,
no
what
resources
we
here.
need to do as a productive
So we just wanna
society
be
is to move forwards from that in order. Because remember, whatever we decide now and what we do here is going to affect people's children. I've got no kids, thank God, but I've got nephews and nieces, and I worry
Thank
about
God for
their
kids.
future and their future. Do you understand?
So, do you believe that the British should pay some kind of reparations towards India, or
Yeah.
was it Iraq?
Yes.
Did you
That's
say
right.
from
Not to
Iraq?
India, no.
For
Iraq,
what-
yes.
no,
Iraq,
no.
yes.
Do you believe that? I just want to know if you believe
To
that.
Iraq,
You
yes,
must
Iraq
stay-
is still
you must stay
rebuilding
there.
itself today because of what they've done now. We have ISIS. Because you know how ISIS was formed, yeah? They came there. Imagine you grew up in your country, in your
got
hometown, yeah?
pursued.
You're watching your mum get raped. You're watching your brother and sister die. You're watching your hometown collapse, and then they leave that country. The ones that have survived, they're gonna be so angry because they've seen all this war, all this oppression in front of their face. They wanna seek revenge. This is how ISIS was formed because of them. You understand? So now they have to clean up that mess.
You're
Yeah,
talking
because-
about the British now. You're talking.
no, well, mainly the Americans, to be honest with you.
Oh, the Americans.
Mainly the Americans, yeah. Obviously, Britain did contribute to that, even in Afghanistan as well, and even Britain sending airstrikes to Syria as well.
All I have to say about that is that Tony Blair, all he had to do was opt out. He didn't have to help Bush.
Right.
He did not have to help Bush. It's only when England want to keep America and Russia as allies so that if shit hits the fan for them,
was an
okay,
illegal
they have
war.
America and Russia
It's been
to
said.
basically help them. So then when George Bush went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan, Tony Blair decided to do that. And that's how Tony Blair put all the financial infrastructure into the war, which put this country into debt and then into recession.
Can I just, we
right.
can go back to the subject in a minute, but I think you're here now, so let's just address it. One of the things is 2 weeks ago when I come, I've known Masood for quite a long time. When we first met, we actually were, like, a lot of people that I meet are very angry with me and they wanted to go for me and stuff. That just happened, but now we're cool here. And one of the things is that when I'm talking about the British identity, he's a British Pakistani Muslim, yeah? I'm a British Punjabi Sikh. Now, he did say something 2 weeks ago that I actually had advised him for 6 months not to say, just because I thought that the negative kind of blowback would have been too much for him. But you handled it well. Now, you said you served in the British Army for 8 years.
Yes, guys.
Now, let me just specify one thing. He told me straight out, and I said, okay, and he told me specifically he never went to any countries out the UK, he never went to any military wars, and you actually was a conscientious objector when it comes to the
I
Iraq
never
war. So
went
just
outside of
clarify.
Europe.
Yeah.
I never went outside of Europe. I didn't go to any Muslim country or any, and I didn't go to the Middle East. Okay.
And you did say you didn't want to go. You said you
But
asked
listen,
you.
I had no choice. My dad forced me in the
No,
army.
I'm saying when I think remember you told me a story that they asked you, will you serve her, and you said no.
I said no. I refused
Yeah.
to.
So you're gonna have to understand. Look,
Okay.
Yeah, but
because there's a lot of comments saying he's a traitor
the
and he's
British
this and
people
he's that.
only like
Yeah.
Muslims when they want to go to Egypt, when they want to go to Dubai, when they want to go tan up their skin to look like Arabs, when they want to take
Around
Arabic
Europe.
tattoos, when they want to
Around
eat
Scotland
kebabs.
and
That's when you
Ireland.
like
I didn't-
Muslims.
I
And I
Yeah?
want to say to people, yeah, like the white racist, yeah, you white racists have never served your country, have you? This guy has. He's done more for you, so he's more British than you. Yeah. So the thing is that I don't want, because one of the reasons why I didn't want him to disclose this, because I know there's a lot of bigoted people on a lot of sides. But like he said, yeah, he was a conscientious objector. He decided not to fight in those particular wars, but to do it in areas that are serving the UK and stuff. So anybody that's writing these comments about him being a traitor to Muslims and all that kind of stuff, you need to shut your mouths. All right.
Shut your
Wow.
mouth.
Okay. Yeah. Go. You want to say a little bit more?
No, basically, yeah, just in reflecting what Raj said about me being in the army. That was in 1998.
You want to come in a bit?
That was in sorry. That was in
No,
19,
you might come in the middle. You're quite big, you know. No offense.
that was in 1998.
Okay.
I didn't have a choice. You know, I was a bit of a terror when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So to speak. My dad, I went inside to prison for 18 months, but for good behaviour, first time offender, they let me out in 8 months.
You let somebody slip the other week.
What's that? About Shamsi?
Don't say nothing.
Right, man, stop trying to start
Oh, no,
something.
Okay, so I was inside, and then when I
Big up, Shamsi,
when I
big
was
up,
released, when I was released, obviously, I mean, I was in the car with my dad. I fell asleep. Within the hour of being released, I woke up in the army barracks.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't undress.
So therefore, guys, I didn't have a choice. Okay,
Well,
it was
he's
either
doing it for you, though,
either the
isn't it?
army barracks or the street,
Fucking hell.
but it was definitely not back at my house. Okay.
But do you think this happens to a lot of white kids as well? That they're kind of like from
Sometimes
bad
the army
backgrounds,
brings discipline.
and what their
you know?
parents
They
do
won't
is
go
just
to
like, all
prison
right,
straight away.
we're gonna send you rather than you go in prison.
I just want to say this one thing. Back then when I joined, okay, there was no terrorism, there was no extremism. The only thing that there was the NF and the BNP, and that was it, and the National Front.
Now I'm gonna have to dispute that because I actually knew Hizb Tahrir, and that was from 1992, and they killed a guy in my college, and they tried to beat me up as well, and some of my friends. So there has been extremism from all sides.
I'm not talking about
compared to that one story,
globally.
there's probably 50 others of the other side.
talking
man.
about
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so
not
it
saying.
doesn't balance. You
I'm
can't
just
use that as
saying.
an
I'm just saying
example.
from my own personal experience that this situation about extremism just happening after 9/11. No, I used to know Majid Nawaz, and this guy threatened to kill me when I was around 19.
It's like the media, though. He
So all
chooses which ones he wants to
I'm
do.
saying,
Yeah,
Without
cherry
balance.
pick.
I'm saying-
Without any
Cherry
balance. So that's
oh
what
my
buns.
God, what the hell?
Buns,
God, I'm the most. Even when
man.
I'm doing
No
good,
balance in
yeah,
what
I'm
man's
now
talking
getting
about.
heat.
I wanted to
No
know.
balance.
Okay,
I
so
wanted to know-
Raj, you always
basically,
do
all
it one
I'm
time.
saying is that extremism, has been around in all. Even in my community, there are Sikhs that are very extreme.
Yeah.
Not the way
So,
the British Empire
so,
was
so
extreme,
they're
fam,
they're
and
very
terrorising, fam.
extreme in all areas.
on.
I was attacked by a Sikh one time.
I would
fam.
even say.
You condemn it. You condemn it.
Okay,
You
let me
condemn
say-
that.
I have to say.
Wallahi, I was attacked by a
I
Sikh.
condemn
fam.
that Sikh.
You
I have to
condemn
say
that.
one
Who is
thing,
it?
Raj. Listen,
Who was it?
Listen.
Who was
It
it?
was
Tommy.
a drunk Sikh
Raj,
fam.
Raj.
You attacked me,
Yeah,
fam.
yeah,
Guys,
yeah.
Sikhs
Sikhs
got-
Yeah, it was
Can I say
drunk.
something?
Drunk,
We
yeah?
do have a
See
problem
how
with
these
Sikhs
Sikhs are
drinking.
moving.
We do have a problem with Sikhs drinking.
They
So
are not
I stopped.
pacifists.
Yeah, we're not pacifists, man.
I used to work in a Sikh restaurant. All they used to do is drink, fam. They used to come in with their wives in the afternoon and then come back at night with the dancers and that, fam.
Yeah,
that's it.
big up to the Sikhs, man. We know how to live, though. We know how to live. You hear that?
Those dancers.
We're fun people, man.
The
but
Lutra dancers.
well, let me
The Lutra dancers.
let me just say something. Let me just say
They
something.
be doing the
Let me
most
just
as
say
well.
something.
The
Every
original
community,
Mullahs.
every community has their
They be doing
problem,
the
yeah.
most,
And
man.
the one thing I have to say about my community that I condemn is that we have a big problem with alcoholism, where people are dying. Like literally, I nearly died once, and I've gone over that before, but I haven't drank for 6 years.
Well, you
to
got
not
alcohol
see-
poisoning.
No, I fell asleep in the cold and got hypothermia.
Oh.
So basically, when it comes to alcohol, this is something I agree with you in terms of Islam, and Sikhism forbids it as well. But for some reason, the Sikhs, you need to get your act together, because whenever I
Baji,
meet,
stop drinking, fam.
whenever I meet people at the park, it's embarrassing, and I say I don't drink. They say, "Oh, I thought Sikhs don't drink." That is the bad reputation that we've got from our particular community, and everyone has their own kind of nuance in terms of problems. So when it comes to that, I can condemn my community for that as well. But like I said, the drinking culture, I totally disagree with when it comes to the Britain as well. I think it's a negative part of British culture that I don't personally like, but it's there. And so, we can't...
In moderation, anything in moderation. Too much of anything is bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything, if you eat freaking bare vegetables, it's going to be
I don't have a problem with people drinking, but when they start, you know how drunk people,
What about baked beans?
especially young people.
What about baked beans?
Over consuming it.
What about baked beans? Is there too much of that?
You
Calm
can
down,
tell us
man.
that in about 20 years' time after your
I've
experiment.
got to say one thing. Listen, Raj, I know that you've had a bit of issues, right, with the Islamic community, like through your life, right? The time when I was in the army, the only one family that supported my family in an entire borough full of very racist people living in that area. The only one family. Do you know where they were from?
Punjab, yeah.
They were your.
The thing is, this is the
They
way.
were-
I think
it's
I
a
might.
Sikh family.
I think I might have.
that helped my family.
What it is, I think my
One
experience.
second,
Yeah, go, no.
besides the disagreements of the war and the colonization of the country, and the separation and of the whole war against Pakistan and India, it was actually Raj's people. Well, I know Raj's family, but it was
India is a third world
Okay,
country.
it was a
You need
Sikh-
to
it was a
sort
Sikh
yourself out.
family. It was a Sikh family.
I'm not Indian, man.
that
I'm not Indian. I'm
helped
Punjabi.
my
India is a
Pakistani
third
family
world.
This is Punjab,
when
not
we was
India.
getting attacked
Yeah, but I don't-
by
I wanna
the
separate
NF and the
state.
BNP, and I was in the army at the time.
Tell us about racism.
So basically, one thing is quite interesting that I don't think I've experienced that much here is that you've experienced a lot of racism from white people, and because I was in a very multicultural area where we had a lot of Pakistanis, I was one of the very only Sikhs in the area, so all my mates were Pakistani or Bengali or Indian Muslim. So I didn't really experience that much racism. The most I had was like I used to wear, you get your banduk or your bobblehead or you call your paki and stuff like that here and there. But I've realised that in certain other areas,
But you know what it is? Yeah, it's
when
funny,
you're
Roger.
the minority like yourself, you've experienced real racism. I haven't experienced it. Maybe that's why I have a little
You
bit of a
experienced something from
disassociation.
your Asian people, right?
Yeah, I have more like from them because they
you
call-
would have
like,
experienced
I've been-
the same if you was in my place.
Yeah, so
as
what
well.
I'm saying is that with me, the people that have called me raghead are not white people. It was Pakistani Muslim people.
Well, listen, if you was living in- if you
but I'm
was-
saying somebody that knocked my turban off once, he wasn't a white person. He was a Pakistani guy. Somebody, the guy that grew one of my cousins, wasn't a white guy.
But you know,
So,
yeah,
do you understand that
even
what
me as an
happens?
Arab, I get called the P word.
But what I'm saying
And
is
I'm not
that
even
what I'm
Pakistani.
saying is that
He's been called the P word as well.
yeah.
By white people, and we're
You
not
look,
even.
you look Punjabi.
So listen, Raz, I'll tell you something. Look, back then, right, when you was getting harassed by Asian people, in that time, even if you was living in, let's say, the birthplace of the British National Party, Bexley Heath and Eltham, where Stephen Lawrence was killed, you would experience similar
Yeah, of course,
type of
yeah.
things.
So, like I said, when I went to the white area when I was 16, I felt like really out of place and like everyone was looking at me. I actually fit, and I didn't go back after. I went Romford once when I was 16 in the 80s, yeah. And when it was all white, and so when I went, I actually felt fearful, and I decided I don't want to go back there. I went back there maybe 15 years, 20 years later, and I didn't feel it at that time because I was older. So yeah, I do agree. There is this kind of like maybe myself. When I'm talking to people, I do have a disconnect with racism, I think, because I haven't really experienced racism like some other people have. I think I've had quite a okay, let's just say kind of a much more softer kind of life when it comes to racism. Because the way you talk about it, it's like it was really horrific.
And I got chased by them down the road and stuff. And I mean, when I was in the army, then they were sticking, the drawing pins in the soap.
Yeah, that's
Right.
disgusting.
And then I come to my bed and there's somebody took a shit on my bed.
Wow.
And then I but listen.
And
check
this guy
out.
is serving your country. That's how you treat him, bro.
Listen,
Shame on you, blood.
What
One
did,
thing I wanna
what
say-
did the British Army do though? Did they try and tackle that, or did they ignore it?
I mean, OC Operational Command Sergeant General or whatever. They were very, very good.
Yeah.
They were good. I mean, they actually, even one of the boys. I don't want to mention his name. He's on my Facebook. Yeah. He was a very, 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 very racist person. He had like 100% British beef tattooed on his chest.
F you, whoever you are.
But now he's a Muslim.
Oh, sorry.
He's on it live.
I take that back.
You're not going to say
F you in the sense where you're flourished. Flourishing. Yeah, at least I said F
That was a
you.
good time.
Why'd you have to wait till the end?
That's how you put a punchline to it.
Big up that person, yeah?
See, so can you not see that, or that's quite a good example of somebody that might have been somebody that might have disliked Islam or people, but and so if somebody like that can then change and then become Muslim, which is the ultimate transformation, going from one extreme to the next,
Mashallah.
there is hope. Oh, come on, we don't want everyone to become Muslim, for God's sakes. But basically, basically that you do have there's a lot of people out there that are not necessarily bad people. Now, the person that done the attack in New Zealand is an evil piece of shit. No matter what you said to him, he would have killed those people. Doesn't matter what you showed him, he didn't care if they were children, women, or whatever, because he's evil. But there are other people, the masses of people, that genuinely, if you was to talk to them, I think they would start adjusting their views. But you can't start calling people racist at the first sign of kind of like what you might consider to be offensive. Do you understand?
I mean, as Muslims, let me just say one thing, yeah? As Muslims, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was attacked a lot. Actually, more worse than the way we think we're being attacked, in a sense where he had stones thrown at him, he was spat at, he was cursed, everything. And he never acted with aggression the way that we act today. So as Muslims, anytime you are being attacked for your faith, just refer back to the way that the Prophet ﷺ dealt with it. I know it's hard sometimes because we want to react, anger takes over, but we have to be following the sunnah, the ways of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So this is a message to the Muslim community, because a lot of us need to kind of get in tune with our Islam. A lot of us have started to stray on the wrong path. Even me, myself, I'm one of the worst. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes my iman is high, sometimes my iman is low. That's how it is as a Muslim. None of us are perfect. But moving forward, as Islamophobia rises, we need to learn how to be prepared, Before the storm happens, we need to know how to react, you know what I'm saying to you? And to that mass shooter, I don't know if you're ever going to see this. Hold on. To that brother, not even a brother, to that animal, to that devil that killed the innocent Muslims, you might have killed them in flesh and bone, but they are still alive in spirits. And they are with our Creator, alhamdulillah. You have given them a one-way ticket to Jannah. Islam will never die. You can never put fear in our hearts. You can kill as many of us as you want, but Islam will never ever die. You can kill Muslims, but Islam will never die. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, ahli Muhammad. Islam will continue to grow, inshallah, by the will of Allah. Islam doesn't want to take over. Islam is there to stay. We're not going anywhere. This is our faith. We have the right to be Muslim. And
what about the guy that
Allah
the
yarham all the
soldier that
Muslims.
changed? You gonna say something?
And mashallah to that Muslim, to that brother that was racist in the beginning, but alhamdulillah he became Muslim. May Allah bless you, my brother.
What did he do with all his racist tattoos all over his body?
Do you want to come into the conversation? Because we've got a white person here. He's not white though.
Stop saying that, Raj, because
He's not white. He's not white. He's some new race of leprechaun.
He's white,
or
man.
something.
He's
I don't know what
Irish.
he is.
He's better.
See
He's
that
better.
there, though,
I'm
Raj?
joking.
See that there, though, Raj?
Yeah.
I don't care you say that, but take that away. If I say something about your culture, you'd be
Say
crazy.
it. Call me
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Don't be honest, though, Raj.
No, I don't
If you
care.
said F6 and that, you would like it.
I
Like
don't
a lefty.
care.
You do care.
I don't
You do
care.
care
Say
because if
it.
someone says something, you go crazy.
I don't go crazy. That's just my normal self.
When he,
Surfers is a prick. That's why I just
Big
don't
up
like that man.
surfers.
You know,
Surfers, yeah, is a total turd of a
I want to
human.
say it's something.
So do you want to come into the conversation as our honorary white man?
Do you want to take my place? Because I'm going to go.
No, we need you here, man.
Oh, wait.
We need the kind of like ferocity, like this kind of bun, the British Empire and all that kind of stuff.
Diversity towards white.
Yeah, do you want to come into the
All
conversation?
right, come
or
on,
do you want to stay off camera?
Just stay on the side if you don't want to be recorded.
No, just.
If you want to just your voice,
If you don't want to be seen.
Go on, get in there. Go on, get in there.
No, if you don't want to be
You
seen.
can forever conflating race with ideology. You keep saying racism towards Muslims. I think Islam is a threat. I don't like Islam. I never have. I never will.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with individual Muslims because they are people.
Right.
I'm trying to separate people from ideas.
Right.
So Islam for me is a threat.
Why? Why do you feel Islam is a threat? Do you understand Islam? Have you read the Quran?
I've read a bit of it. I read
Okay,
about, but just without getting into scripture, I find it very boring because it's not true. It's man-made. One of the
Okay.
scriptures is
mind if
man-made.
That's your opinion.
I just think I have no time for religion at all. I value secularism, liberty, liberal values.
So is it not liberal for people to be able to practice their religion freely?
Yeah, up
Is
to a
that not
point.
part of liberation?
Yeah, I can still, up to a point, but I can still see it as a threat. But it's this real sort of like.
What threat do you see? If you don't, I mean, what threat do you see?
Well, Islam, my understanding of it is a totalising ideology. It's a totalising theocratic ideology, which
means
is a threat to Western liberal.
taking over today.
Democracy, democratic values.
So do you have
in
this
the West-
feeling that Islam is trying to force this ideology on everybody
You're
else?
gonna go
Islam
mad in the
trying-
comments.
Well, I suppose it's expansionistic. He wants to take over. Does he want to convert?
How many?
I dated a Muslim girl.
on.
I was
How
with
many
this girl
other
for a year and a half.
of your crew
They're
now
trying to
just
fucking
use
convert me.
Hold on,
And they're pretty harsh. And when you say no, they just ramp
love
it up
that shit.
and they get hostile.
So
So you get the
let's talk
threatening
about
Because
threatening
I'm like,
behaviour.
yeah, I don't
Well, that's not right. That's not Islam.
come
You know,
to the conversation.
that
It
one.
is though, innit?
No, it's not though, mate. Because honestly, you can't generalise though. That's very dangerous. Because as you hear me speaking, right, I'm not generalising the whole West. I'm speaking about white supremacy. Do you understand? Because I've got white friends. I've got friends from all over the globe, right?
But can I just specify something? I think Zabida is in a little bit of a different situation because her family were from Iraq. I think
father,
this kind of like when I listen to it, I do give you a bit more leeway, just because I'm like you do say things like the kuffar, big up the kuffars, man. We run things right there. But you do say the word
just means
kuffar.
non-believer.
But what I'm saying, you do say the word
it's not a
kuffar,
rude
but we
term.
run things right there. Yeah. But basically, when it comes to this situation, like I don't take it so personally from you because. If I saw my father and they were from a particular place that now is rubble, and it was done by a particular, I'm going to be pissed off. So I give you that kind of like.
But I'm
for
not
you-
pissed off at all
for-
white people.
but
I'm
saying
pissed
for-
off at
so-
the government at the time.
So for you specifically, I can go, all right, I can give you some leniency because you have a real life connection to that. But whenever people are kind of like demonizing and saying stuff about white people in general, it's a bit more problematic to me because
Yeah.
you can't blame the whole race of white people.
Yeah, of course.
You
Who's
can blame
listen, Raj,
Who's doing that though?
Raj, I have to
You
say,
can if you want, I don't
you
care.
No, but I want to hear this guy though. I really
You're
do
not
want to
white,
hear you.
though.
Raj, I want to hear this guy.
Stop that.
You're not. You're new. You're new race of
I
people.
don't
But
care.
hold on. I want to hear this guy. Go on.
You're
When we get
you're
bogged down in this
more
conversation
pinker
about
than a
race.
normal white man, though. I'm not going to say that. You know, he's
Raj,
more
can you
pinker
please
than a
let
normal
this
white
guy
man.
speak?
There you
Please,
go,
please,
go,
Raj. Go on, brother.
I just find it you've got to separate. You've got to separate race from religion always. I know you can talk about racial differences. It's an interesting conversation.
Right.
But ultimately, you'd rather talk about ideas. Great minds talk about ideas.
I think it's in the
And it's a battle of
minus
ideas
10.
for me, and Islam is a bad idea.
But you don't agree that Islam and Muslims have contributed to a lot to, i.e. with mathematics, with science. We have had a lot of input in the way that the world runs today.
I hear
Through
about this.
Muslim scientists, through Muslim astronomers.
I hear about the Islamic golden age, but I don't know.
Yeah.
it's
Say-
obvious.
say-
But
say-
that's
say-
the
say-
thing.
say-
Yeah, go on, brother, go on.
Okay, so look, you said that about Islam, right? You had bad experiences with some Muslim people that they tried
Yeah,
to
loads of Muslims,
forcefully.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now I
No,
want to tell you
actually.
one thing that happened to me.
It's like a ghetto
Okay,
religion. I mean, I
this
see it
is-
as like a ghetto religion.
Okay, check this out. Listen to this. Yeah. I've been robbed by a Moroccan man. I've been pickpocketed by an Algerian man. I got
Sorry
scammed
about
by
that,
a Nigerian Muslim man. I got robbed by a Bangladeshi Muslim.
All
Sikhs,
Muslims,
though.
all Muslims.
All Muslims, yeah. I
you all criminals?
I got
No,
conned,
mate, you can't
yeah.
say all.
I got conned, yeah. But I
criminal
got
religion.
robbed. My laptop got robbed by a Pakistani Muslim man. My rent money
You're
got
robbing each other,
yeah. Okay.
No Sikhs.
My rent money got robbed by a Bangladeshi Muslim man. Yeah.
Okay, Bobby, you're making us look bad, you know.
And it was a Sikh.
You're not helping, bro. You're not
It was a
helping.
Sikh lady that helped
A
him.
Nigerian Muslim man scammed me. Algerian Muslim man pickpocketed
bloody
me.
hell, man.
Moroccan Muslim man robbed me
white
and
man came to
slapped
your
me.
rescue.
Yeah. So now I'll tell you
Look at
something.
the size of you. How did you get slapped?
He slapped and he ran away. Yeah. So basically, what happened is the people that did it,
He
right?
better be around
The
that
people
big,
they saw an
man.
opportunity,
If he's
so
some
they
little
took
titchy
it,
little
regardless
guy,
of my religion,
like that
regardless of
little
their
turd, that
religion.
little
Although they
Indian,
used
I'll
the
be
word
mad.
Muslim brother, put your trust in me, put your trust in me, put your trust in me. Okay, we're gonna get rich together, and then they grab the money, turn and run away. You know. So what's happened is. It's not the religion that it's not the religion that.
Oh,
teaches
come on,
them.
you Muslims, you
Islam
hate each
doesn't
other,
never
innit?
make.
All you do is fight with each
Can I tell you
other.
something? There's a difference between Muslims
I'm
and
not-
Islam.
I'm not getting- I'm being nice today.
Hold on, Raj.
There's so much internal conflict in Islam.
Understand me.
There is a lot of-
There's a difference between Islam and Muslims, right? Islam doesn't allow you to
When
steal.
I first met him,
Islam
I
doesn't
tried
allow
to
you
kind
to.
of,
That's what I'm
warn him
telling
off.
you, mate. If you read the Quran,
When I
because the
first met
Quran
him, I
clearly
was
states
like,
what we should
I
and
know,
what we
you looked
shouldn't
into
do.
it dark.
Now, as
You know it's not
people,
true, though. Right.
I
Like,
believe
it's
it's
so
true.
deep.
I believe it's true,
I
mate.
assumed because we
I
didn't do it.
believe
Allah
it's
doesn't
true.
actually exist. There is no
That's my
judgment.
racism.
There is no hellfire.
Well, that's your opinion,
you're
mate.
fine.
You're so
Hey,
white,
There's
you're
1.8 billion
not
people that believe in the same thing. You understand?
Uneducated.
But listen, that's beside the point. Because if you believe,
It's a big deal because if it's
what
not
are you?
true,
I can see
You're
your
an atheist,
veins.
right? Yeah.
I don't accept God belief. I don't accept
When the
God.
You don't
sun's
believe
out,
God, yeah?
Yeah.
So I don't agree with that belief, but it's not enough for me to say you're uneducated, you shouldn't have those beliefs. You understand? Because people should, if you're talking about liberation, people should be free to have their own thoughts. Unless their ideology is not forced upon you, unless their ideology doesn't oppress you, we're living in the 21st century, mate, like you don't want to say, right? We keep on advancing.
It's a supremacist ideology.
But have you been oppressed by a Muslim, though?
Yeah, loads of times. That's all they fucking do.
Okay, can I say something?
You're born and bred in this country. You're English, right? So how does it feel that I've been in the British Army and I'm Muslim?
Huh?
I've been in the British Army and I'm Muslim as well. That's it.
It sounds like you went against your own will, though.
No, I mean,
But it doesn't matter. A lot of people are going against their own will.
But
I don't have an opinion on that. Well done, you fought in the army.
Okay, can I ask you? What do you think about the innocent Muslims that were killed in New Zealand?
I think that guy was a white supremacist and nationalist. I don't think. I watched that Sarah Gardner talks about the manifesto. I didn't hear or
Look
see
how
in
thin
that.
I've got now, man.
Anti-Israel.
Shut up,
He didn't say anything about Muslims, foreign invaders. That's what he's trying to say. It was more about sort of brown people, foreign invaders, immigrants. He did not. There was nothing anti-Islam.
But why did he target only Muslims, though?
PC
Because
boxes.
they're easy. They're all in the mosque there. Because I think Muslims are the
Do you
forefront.
condemn those attacks, though? Do you agree with that?
Well, listen, right?
No, it's a
Hey,
yes
that
or
Ali.
no, honestly,
Hey,
mate.
that
I'm
Ali.
gonna. Do you think I'm not
PC
going to
boxes
condemn
needs
it?
to be.
No, I'm
He was
just
like
asking
Call
you.
of Duty,
Here.
when
I'm
he
just
just
asking
shot
you.
there were piles of Muslim bodies, point blank range, just shooting them. It was. I've saw those videos. It's horrific.
So
Do you think I'm going to
if
just
Muslims
champion
are
that
oppressive,
behaviour?
do you not agree that there are other Islam's not the only oppressive religion that you think?
I've got my bag
There's other
here.
oppression happening.
Islam's the most. I think Islam's the most dangerous
It's the most.
Can't leave my bag there.
No, that's a bit far-fetched, mate.
I think Muhammad was a supremacist.
He didn't even sleep my
But
flute. You saw he
supremacist
stole
in
my
what sense,
flute.
though?
I think he.
He put it up.
Raj, can you please, every time you talk too much, this loves the sound of our voice, man.
I apologize.
You love the
No,
sound of
but
your
one-
I like when he talks.
You can talk.
I'm trying to hear this guy, fam.
You got blood everywhere, man. You got blood in your butthole.
Allow it, man, please, man. We're having a serious
got blood in your
conversation.
Are you furious about the other day? Then did you watch that Major Six?
So,
What? About the Muslims? Yes, I was absolutely disgraced.
can I just-
Disgrace, man. That's my Muslim.
ju-
We as a Muslims, we believe we're ummah. Yeah?
What's your
We
fucking
believe we're brothers
fault,
and sisters. Yeah, that's my brothers and sisters. Whether you agree with it or
Lick it.
not, right, that's my people.
lick it off.
Even if it wasn't Muslims, I don't like oppression, mate. I don't like it at all. Yeah, so the fact that innocent people were killed and it was children and families in a mosque, that makes me sick. If it was Jews, look, even when the
The
shooters...
blood is on your hand.
Oh, no, hold on, brother.
Whoa,
Blood is on your
Your,
tongue.
your blood is in your butthole. Stop getting rimmed.
No, brother, please.
Dirty cunt.
Brother, Akhi, we have to
Dirty rat.
be respectful, Akhi. We can't retaliate like that, Akhi. We
The
have to.
police are after him as well.
Nah,
Snitch,
listen,
snitch,
brother, we have
snitch,
to, as
snitch.
Muslims, we cannot say that, yeah? But what I'm saying to you, even when they killed up the people in America, when they shot up the black people in the church, that pissed me off as well.
This was about race, though. The Christchurch attack was about race. It was left for national.
No, it was about Muslims, bro. It was about a Muslim attack, bro.
I think
it's a Muslim attack.
About race.
Personally, this is what I.
Let me just say about race, right? There's Muslims that are different colour races.
That's right.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
That's right.
In his manifesto, there was. I'm honestly not aware there was any anti-Muslim rhetoric.
He says he was
There
racist,
was, he
mate.
said-
He
he
says
said
he
he
was
was-
racist.
No, I think
It's
he was.
not a race, is it?
No, I think he was saying
It's not
that.
a race.
Yeah, but obviously...
It's not a race.
Yeah, but
Did he say that?
yeah,
It's a
it's
race.
not a race.
It's a
Right,
race.
you're
So
absolutely
Muslims are
right.
not a race. You
No,
can't
we're not
convert
race.
to a race.
No,
So
can't.
there was nothing in his manifesto that was anti-Muslim. It was anti-foreign invaders, anti-immigrants, anti-brown people. It was all about white supremacy.
Yeah, I mean,
Protect his own
the
people.
core element.
So
was-
why did he choose Muslims, though?
Because they're easy targets. You're in the mosque. I don't know what I mean, and they're the forefront of all of this. I'm just saying. In the
You proposing?
Because what about the other one, the one that happened
You
in
proposing,
Norway,
you
in
little
Europe, by what's his
weirdo.
name? You know the other guy,
Anders
right?
Breivik.
Anders Breivik, yeah. Was
This guy
that a
in prison
Muslim
and
attack or was that
I just
a
understand
Norway?
that guy was a Nazi, a Christian
Yeah, I'll cut my
fundamentalist.
pubes.
He killed a load of white liberal students.
I'll give you the breakfast.
He killed like 92 people.
I'll give it for your
But he
breakfast.
killed
Put
like
on your pillow.
Norwegian.
Yeah, he killed his own as well.
Like, there was
Cushion it on
just
your
white
pillow.
students, white Norwegian students. He blamed them for immigration and like,
But ultimately, moving forward, because I do find it a little bit concerning when you say, I don't like Muslims, I hate them.
He's
As
a
don't
king
like
of the
his
10
one.
inches. He's got no gag reflex.
a fellow British person like you, and I'm a Muslim, it does offend me when you say these things. And this is what causes the fight.
You've got
I
no
don't like
Adam
Islam.
breakfast
If you want to attack your
apples
ideology,
anymore
that's your
because they've got so
problem.
many
I
calls
didn't say I
down.
hate Muslims. I was a Muslim for a year and a half. I loved the bitch. She was a piece of shit, and she's trying to grab me all the time.
Where was she from? Was she like Arab?
Pakistan.
Oh, she's Pakistan, yeah?
Yeah, beautiful girl. She's
And
fucking hard work.
you weren't Muslim, she was with you.
Yeah. Haram, innit?
Is she in a relationship with you?
Haram.
Oh, no,
Why is
she's in a
haram?
relationship with you. What happened?
No.
Didn't work out.
Why not?
I wouldn't convert. Islam destroys everything.
Did she want you to convert?
You know what? I think he's upset. I think your relationship upset you. That's why you don't like Muslims.
Easy, too easy.
You don't
That's
like
too easy.
Muslims because the Pakistani girl broke his heart.
Wait,
Not
Just
that's why, fam.
more than one Muslim, mate. Not just
Yeah,
more
so
than one.
if you had your heart broken by a Muslim.
That's why I hate Islam.
That's
I hate Islam because
My
it's a shit
sister's married
religion.
to a white Englishman as well, and she got children by him.
Flutes up in his mouth.
But they're not together anymore. But it just happened like
I have to
that.
hide it.
I'm sorry to hear it. I would rather that you got married, you know?
Listen, right, she
I've
was
got
brainwashed,
a
she was
flute that's
backwards,
14
she was
inches now. Let's see if you can take
she
it
was
down.
indoctrinated, her friends were appalling, all brainwashed down and radicalised at the Islamic Society University, saying I need to convert to Islam, something happened to my life, white man. Now, I don't want to, racist as well, man, fucking racist.
What happened with my sister and her husband?
You know today, yeah, we're trying to
Okay,
have a conversation,
converted,
yeah,
but
about
just to like for the marriage, you know,
And
not
what
really
you're
like
doing is,
the
when you're around like the
convenience.
two
Just for the convenience. Still went out to
got your heart, how you
break
little
it.
prick.
Well, I mean, just listen, just
You're a
because
fool.
it's that there was two weddings.
You're a
There was
fool.
like a Muslim wedding and then like a traditional wedding, right? So just
Listen
for
here,
like the thing, he just got his Shahada done. For him it was whatever. I understand. He
Here's a Hader Ali.
can
You
commit
will
to
never
it
Big up the
completely and pray 5 times a
popo.
day.
Big up the
Yeah?
popo.
I understand because at the end of the day we all loved him. You know what I mean? Like, our whole family loved him. So even if he wanted to go out and drink or whatever,
And what are you gonna
chill
do
out
about
with his
it?
mates,
What are you gonna do about it?
We weren't even like in my family. Right? I have a lot of mixture in my family.
Yeah, you walk around like
I'm
this. I heard about you. You're
For
some
my
street
brother
thug.
to marry anyone.
You are road. Not speakers
I'm just right here, mate.
You're road, not speakers corner.
Just descends into this bickering.
I'm speakers corner,
You
not
guys-
road.
Speakers corner.
Tell that guy to stop talking.
Hey,
He's ruining the conversation. We're having a sensible conversation.
Okay,
He's
so
right here.
basically what happened is
Let me
I'm gonna fucking come, guys.
We're
Please,
trying to talk about something serious, and
I'm
this
trying
guy's
to
just
talk.
in the background sucking cock.
No, you as well. Right,
Deradicalised, this guy tried to be programming. We're best
Oh, that's
mates.
that guy. Get away from me. Did he try molesting you?
look.
Into
Oh
ginger?
fucking hell.
Sorry.
Right,
They
let
love
this
the
guy,
gingers,
this
innit?
one was
Okay, so
speaking.
basically-
They do love the gingers, innit, the Muslims? They love to try and get the gingers.
I don't really care.
I
I've never
forgot
really been
your
with
name.
ginger.
White people hate me.
White people hate you.
Because I'm ginger, innit?
Wow.
I'm more marginalised than you Muslims, trust me.
So you're being oppressed by your own kind.
White people hate gingers, trust me.
No,
And that's why you can't convert us, innit?
Nah,
Snap us
bro.
up.
Nah, bro.
So basically,
Endangered
what's your name
species.
again? your name?
Phil.
Phil, Maz.
Justice for
What
Ginger!
is
I'm not just converted to Islam, have I? There's no contact.
Oh my God, bro.
Look at the
La ilaha
Listen,
illallah.
Phil, what is the difference between the relationship that you was in and the relationship that my sister was in is that
Yeah, the popos are, yeah.
the husband, my sister's husband, he converted for the sake of, but just for the convenience.
Allow it, Raj,
Right?
man.
Even now, still, he just kind of like, we let him do his own thing, you know? For the sake of like, not my family, but for the sake of like the people that are in the wedding, yeah, just to keep their mouth shut, he just will sign the declaration.
Yeah, but it's weakness, isn't it?
No, but then listen, just do, after that, it's,
You've got to be principled, man. You've got to stick by principle.
was your missus,
I didn't believe it.
was your ex-missus, was she really strong on it? You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to convert, you have to become like this, pray 5 times a day, instead of 6 times a day first.
But obviously, she wasn't really that much of, she wasn't really serious Muslim if she got into a relationship with a non-Muslim. I'm not judging the girl, but obviously, for me as a Muslim, no, but obviously, based on Islamic principles, no Muslim girl should enter a relationship or want to be with somebody that's not Muslim.
It's wrong.
You say with kuffars?
No,
We got the
no,
kuffars
you're
and
not
one
filthy,
thing.
bro.
Muslims are allowed to marry Christians and Jews.
Men are, not the women. Not the woman. Not the woman.
Women are.
No, the women are akhi. It's just the men, brother. Yeah. The man can marry a Christian or a Jewish woman.
But a
No,
woman
because she's
can't.
still a people of the book, unless hopefully, inshallah, she converts. But to be honest, a woman cannot enter a relationship with a non-Muslim. A Muslim woman can't enter a non-Muslim man. Not because you're filthy kuffar. Kuffar means non-believer, bro.
Big up the
It's guided.
kuffars who run things.
Just remember,
I've got like
that means non-Muslim. That's what it means.
I know, but we run things. I know the kuffars run things.
Listen, do you know how similar Islam is to Judaism?
Yeah, it's very similar.
So I took her to my house. She introduced my family. My family loved her. I took her on holiday. She loved it. She
It's almost
went back to
90%.
Essex. I was spending more time with my
90%,
family.
You're from Essex, yeah?
Huh?
You're from Essex?
From Essex, yeah.
Where, Chelmsford?
Brentwood. So she'd come around my house, we'd be intimate, and then she'd pray in the corner for forgiveness afterwards. She'd throw that shit.
Oh no.
Like, because I almost like, repent of sins because you've been with me.
Can I ask you a
And I go,
question?
darling, you don't have to do that. It's not fucking true.
Can I ask you a question? Look, one of the things we was
I
discussing
don't know,
before. One of the things we was discussing before.
This is a bit messed up.
Hold on,
Yeah, I
one-
think this is
hold
a
on,
bit.
hold on, let's not get into
It's the
personal
hypocrisy,
things.
isn't it?
Hold on,
You
hold on.
have, when you live here, you can't. It's impossible to live in the West.
She been getting done in the head. I mean,
She might have had gin inside her.
somebody like gin. Somebody telling
Let's
her.
do an exorcism, man.
Somebody
I
was
wanna meet someone
pressuring
with a
her.
gin in them.
So what it was.
Was he not here? Like 3 weeks ago when that guy
I
was
wish I
screaming.
knew you.
That was
then.
the gym, fam.
You know why? I would have said to you, listen, get her away from these people. Get her away from them. And if she don't get away from them, you have to get her. You have to get her.
Ultimately, we sin. As Muslims, we sin. Like me, for instance, right? I used to drink alcohol. I haven't drunk alcohol for months, right? Because and people judge me, even Muslims. Oh my God, you used to drink alcohol. You da. Allah knows that we're gonna sin, but Allah is the most forgiving. So if we do commit sin, Allah will forgive us. You understand? That's the principle that we live by. Even if you don't believe it, you think it's fairy tales.
It doesn't exist.
I believe in it, and
No,
that
but
gives me
also,
hope.
if
That
you-
gives me
if you
faith in my
stop,
life.
but also if you stop, like I've stopped for 6 years, people say, "Oh, Rod, you used to drink." Yeah, I used to drink. I'm more stronger than you because I stopped it.
That's right.
So somebody that has done something and then stops it is much more stronger in terms of their
Like you see
willpower.
the videos, Raja, online of me holding a beer can,
yeah,
which
I've
is
all
a beer 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago, bro, yeah? And I'm still being judged for what I done 2 years ago, which I find is very disgusting because as Muslims, we have no right to judge nobody. We have no right to slander nobody at the end of the day because me drinking alcohol, if anything, it only affects me because I'm putting that substance within my body. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So I don't understand why people are so bothered about what I used to drink, what I put in my stomach.
Haven't said
as
that.
if, hold on, when they go out and slandering, what is more worse, my brother? Someone drinking alcohol and stopping, or somebody slandering somebody about what they used to do?
Can we
Somebody
get
slandering
down?
about-
Hold on,
Somebody
sorry,
slandering,
Sabina, we have a white person here. Let's talk about this white issue.
No, I want to say
Sorry.
No, sorry,
He's
you're right.
gonna go in it. He's
There's
gonna go
so
in
many
it.
Muslims
So,
out there that drink alcohol.
no,
Like,
but
so many.
this-
I have to be honest with you, sometimes
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up. But one of the things I wanna kind of just say, do you truly believe here that people that are not of the same ethnicity of you are trying to take over the West or the UK?
it's not a takeover.
Not Muslims, but I'm talking
No,
about
not to take over,
immigrants.
no, not really. I think there's a chip on his shoulder. But the whole time I stood over there thinking, fuck now, there's a real victim mentality.
I'm not a victim. I'm only a victim of crime from Gay Dunya. He took my flute.
And you're grassing.
Brown people got a bit of
Yeah,
gym
big up the
rats.
Pope.
I like brown people. I like brown girls.
the
I've always
priest
fancied
I'm
brown
looking
women.
for.
I told you the
He's
white
the
people
no
don't
man,
like
why
ginger,
don't you
ostracised.
deal with
So I
wanted man
gravitate
in
towards
the
the
world
brown
for
guys.
taking the
Well, so all your girls
Your
are
eyes are
Asian,
full.
black,
You like Pakistani Bangladeshi
But the
women?
thing is, it's the culture.
That's the shit that he reads
Pakistani and Bangladeshi women. You like
That's
that?
the flute that he
Yeah.
took his ass.
Where do you live?
Yeah,
Do you live in an Asian area?
backwards religion.
Do you live in an Asian
This
area?
guy's been moving up his ass, bro.
Do you live in an Asian
He
area?
wears black so he can't see his
Essex,
blood.
I'm Essex.
He's an Essex boy.
I live in Hammersmith now.
He's got no gag reflex.
He's an Essex
Let me
lad.
tell
I like
you,
brown
right.
people.
He's got no Adam Zappo left.
How does he know all this
That's
gag
like
reflex?
That's
You like the food as well?
He's taken down.
He does, you know.
I just have a problem with
Read
I
by
have a problem
Tony
with
Robinson
Islam
and his
because it's a
all
religious and
CFA
political
lot, man.
theocratic
You know, them
ideology, and I see it as a threat
Muslim
to
Reagans,
Western
them
democracy.
fuck-clad motherfuckers, they whip him up, you get me?
I mean, I
So the Islamic Reagan.
Yeah, the Muslim Reagans,
Talking about the white
can I-
woman
these are the
in
ones that
Essex,
rape him, you know.
the white woman.
But can I ask you-
These are the ones
Straight away
that
said,
he
I'm not
cleans
being
with
racist
his
towards
tongue.
Muslims. I'm thinking, fucking
He
hell, she's
says them,
falling
get
into
me?
that trap. Islam's not a race.
But can I ask you a
When you
question?
criticise Muslims, it's not about race.
yeah, honestly. So what?
Yeah,
He's a new word against it.
one last. What is your solution
What the
for
fuck are you
kind of
talking
like
anyway? You
the
ain't got
kind of
no
like
input on it. You get me?
what's your solution? Because I've spoken about it
your-
before. I
your
think,
stuff, Tommy
what do you
Robinson,
think here the solution is? Yeah, I know deporting gay dunya is definitely number one on my list, but we'll put him in a catapult
Your
with
world is
Anjem
gay.
Chowdhury and we'll
Gay
chuck him over to
dunya.
the
Anjem
moon.
Chowdhury.
But basically with yourself, yeah.
Because he's honest.
Hold on, with yourself, yeah. Hold on, with yourself, yeah. And with yourself, yeah. What do you think the solution is? Because I've said my piece before.
his food
But what do you
and
think the
shove it up his
solution
ass.
is about people kind of like
what
living
he's
under
already
in one country together and united
For integration, isn't it? It's still stuck in race, talking about race. I think there can be sort of lots of cultural integration, racial integration. I don't mind about that.
Listen,
So
I
you're
want
not
this.
racist
It's a
then?
battle of
I mean, ultimately, mate,
I know,
right,
I love
I think
you,
we
brown
should all
people.
live in unity between each other, and I think we should all love each other, and we should just stop fighting, basically. Like, that's just my
What
solution.
about this
Listen,
kind
I'll
of
tell you
person?
what.
You're doing a question of me. That
I'll
was the worst.
That's right,
I want to
that's
see
right.
what this big curvy, big
That's right, tell him.
Pakistani woman who lives in Hackney.
That was very racist. Especially, it was very
Was
racist.
that that's not
but
racist.
he's
That's
drawing.
racist.
That's a Cockney accent, man.
Offensive.
That's a Cockney accent. I'm Cockney in it.
All right.
Message.
All right, yeah, I think
Right, ultimately, we're going to wrap this up, right? Thank you, Raj, for being here.
Yeah, right, mate.
Thank you,
Yeah,
my brother
let's-
here.
let's
Thanks
go
to
down
the
to the
Steezer
pub,
over
mate.
here.
Come on,
Some pears.
Come on, man.
Let's apple and pears.
Let's go down
Hold
to
it
the
out,
pub,
mate.
man.
Don't
Come on,
know
mate. Come
what.
on, yeah,
Big
yeah,
up all my
let's do it,
Muslims
let's
and
do
that.
it.
You get me?
Let's bust a nut.
What I'm
Yeah, come on,
saying,
let's
yeah?
bust a nut.
Inshallah.
Let's go.
All of that, baby. Fuck it.
Come on,
Down,
man.
man.
Let's go down to the pub. All right, so basically, yeah.
Mashallah, la ilaha illallah.
You're going to detonate something now, are you?
Nah, mate, I'm not going to detonate
So
nothing,
basically,
right?
what we're going to do
Ultimately.
is we don't want to be racist with this kind of Cockney slang here, so we're going to leave it. But basically, I think we've come to a good conclusion. COE, I took the COE takeover today. I've had like maybe 4 hours worth of videos, so be prepared for some Rajaphobia.
What's the take-home message?
attack.
Racism is wrong, but very funny, and Islam is still a threat.
Look, I want to say something.
Big up to all the Muslims.
Stop.
Big up.
Where's the camera? Where's the camera?
There's the
Okay,
camera.
get Raj come in for a second, please. What are you going to do? No, just come in, listen. I want to send a message. Saki Hussein, listen, I want you to come down here. Have a conversation with Raj, yeah? Okay, speak to the man. And speak to us, okay? Don't have this idea in your mind, okay?
Yeah, nice to meet you, mate. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bad, evil.
Yes, definitely,
Just
mate.
come down,
I'm here
speak
most
to
Dude is
Sundays.
the person that is like the solution.
Well,
not
I
the
mean,
friend.
that's not
big
going to
up to
happen,
the
but
If you have anything
it's
on
going
your
to be
mind,
very hard. Me, I'm not the one.
anything on your mind,
Mate, at the end of the day, I'm very fanatic Muslim, and I will
By the way,
always
you may have this
take
bad
to freedom.
thought in your mind.
Yeah, well, look at that.
The same what I do.
I'm Muslim. I'm
Never again.
I will.
Please, 1 minute.
I will.
I want to
I'm very
camera 1
happy to
second,
Muslim.
man. Please.
Educate you.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
open
I
my
came in with the
There's no
hospital.
way.
We're becoming light
No,
Okay.
no,
But
no.
then speaking to
He
him,
wants
my
to
views
say you
changed.
think why.
The same happened with Big Odds as
Such a
well.
lovable character.
We spoke to him, okay? My views changed, okay? Raj, I
Big up
understand
on my
he has a
Muslims.
bit of an issue, okay?
Understand.
With I think with grooming. He has a bit of an issue with grooming.
I don't like shut up.
Oh,
What?
no.
Big up all my people that stand.
Wait, stop.
Hey, Raj is shook now, he's pissing himself.
too dark here.
Big up all Muslims, you understand?
Are you
Hey, he's the light.
Big up all Muslims, yeah?
Okay, listen, second, just come down here, speak to the man, alright? Please, okay?
Who's he addressing?
Oh, he's talking about me because me and him, like Bigard, you know me and Bigard?
Oh, yeah.
The beginning when we was hostile, he was the same thing. When he came over to me, he was hostile.
I was like,
He wanted to
I
get me.
approached him like,
Oh,
listen,
big up,
what are you
yeah.
saying, man?
But now we're cool.
Big up all Muslims.
Yeah, alright, man. Anyway, oh, good.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to
I read this
ITV.
morning's manifesto of this killer in New Zealand today, and he was talking about that. Basically arguing, and there's quite a few people around with some reasonable reputation on the right wing who are arguing the same type of thing. In particular, this guy Jordan Peterson's famous for that. And what he says is that, sorry? Well, I define him as right wing. He might not define himself. He might choose not to define himself that way.